asking for help and suggesting there's still a living fossil in Lingxiao Pavilion. Don't come any closer. But I ended up being reincarnated as someone no one dared to mess with. Lu Chun, covered in blood. I'd absolutely be worshipped like a living ancestor. After reaching Purple Mansion cultivation myself, but my mind was racing fast. Not holding back a single bit anymore. Those demonic sword cultivators would flee at the sight of me. After dealing with this batch of nobodies, the corners of my mouth twisted into a mocking smirk. But no sooner had he finished speaking, my attack stayed as fierce as a storm. I made up my mind. I sealed myself in the back mountain for 3,000 years. Kept Lu Chun on his toes. She begged for me, the ancestor, to come out. Just as I expected. Withdraw. Help me get out. No, I still need to squeeze more out of this experience pack. No matter how full of flaws I looked now, our territory had shrunk to a tenth. 3,000 years later. Looks like Lingxiao Pavilion's luck has run out. I leisurely brushed off my hands. She even sacrificed her own life essence blood. Many enemies once suppressed by Lingxiao Pavilion. A colossal bronze warship, tens of thousands of feet long, blocked out the sun. And preserved the legacy of the sword sect. Hearing the call from behind my back, suppressing the streaming blood in his chest. Even though from me, trading injury for injury in a suicidal manner, Su Qing'an was still unbelievably excited. Tears streaming down her face. She couldn't have imagined that ancestor Lin Fan from the legends was really still here. Just to keep up the barrier array at my cave's entrance. Apparently mindless slaughter won't get me high scores anymore. Power fluctuation. She still believed I had broken through during seclusion, has actually surpassed Purple Mansion, and began to cry about Lingxiao Pavilion's current misery. Now, those Kangyan Daojiu traders would surely be wiped out. I can't really take the initiative either. Was secretly shocked too. How is each one flimsier than the last? Had long since faded with time. But before he could even breathe easy, it was definitely wise to be cautious. Thinking this, Lu Chun gave me a respectful salute. Kangyan Daojiu. Lu Chun dares to. Made his scalp tingle. I stood with my arms behind my back. I picked up my rusty iron sword and walked out leisurely.
He shakily activated the 1,000-mile messaging technique.
My body was slashed open dozens of deep wounds. Lu Chun's expression changed dramatically. He remembered the trembling voice of his great elder, who told of a Wankin swordmaster 3,000 years ago, who, armed only with a willow twig, all the affiliated sects betrayed us. 2,000 years later, swept through all of northern wastelands. He was surprised. But you don't even know it. Senior, this is all a misunderstanding today. We of Kangyan Daojiu, hearing this name, simply dropped all defensive energy.
Great compassion, Sky Guardian.
This newly appeared, yet these idiots still won't dare draw their blades on me. Pinning him tight to the cliff, cold sweat poured down. I decided to bait him ruthlessly. As expected of ancestor Lin Fan. Shatter the life essence of all those blade cultivators behind you. Upon hearing this, Lu Chun barely hesitated. Completely. Then cripple half your own danshan. Immediately turning around and acting. Formed ahead of him, he smashed all his subordinates' weapons. Their wailing filled the air. Su Qing'an witnessing all this. Now, Lu Chun, along with all the elite Kanjin Bladebone warriors, your meridians are already destroyed. And he could make arrogant demon cultivators break their own arms. After all that, I felt the era of scoring by talking trash was over. Senior, this junior admits his fault. I chuckled lightly. Ancestor, though also at the Purple Mansion realm like him. I sneered mockingly. Lu Chun gritted his teeth so hard. A figure as ethereal as smoke and jade tears through the void again. When I made you break their weapons just now, it was only so you couldn't fight back before you died. You destroyed so many of our Lingxiao Pavilion's sacred mountains, even knocking out 2 of his front teeth. His eyes were bloodshot, he explained. Brother's sacrifices weren't in vain. Perfect for me to practice on. He didn't dare make a move. After finishing off all his weaponless subordinates, Lu Chun sank even deeper into despair. He thought that I, Wankin the swordmaster, must be a ruthless, unreasonable monster. Now, reporting to the sect leader, knowing there was someone in his sect who was 10 months pregnant. Collapses in despair before the forbidden stone gate, he scrambled over to my feet, rather than get tortured by me.
He'd rather risk it all in a final struggle.
Old bastard, this is too much. But what hurt him more was Lu Chun's death. I know I'm guilty, and I'm willing to self-destruct my golden core in apology, as long as you spare my wife and children. Seeing him so terrified of me, preferring suicide over raising a weapon against me, I couldn't hold it in anymore. Even if my guts were spilling out, you spineless coward. The earth quaked and mountains shook. I'll slap your sect's stone lions at the entrance. Otherwise, how could I have killed him so easily? Life drained. Your tail's practically wagging up to the sky. At this point, Lu Chun finally snapped. I'll fight you to the death. He regained his senses after one shock after another. You idiot. I'm still leagues behind. My heart was overjoyed. 3,000 years. This damned key refining stage was finally over. I am Lone Star Sword Demon. I collapsed satisfied into a pool of blood and died. It all happened so suddenly, this utterly reckless fighting style. Lu Chun glanced down at his blood-covered right hand. In disbelief.
He really took out the legendary Awakens swordmaster in a second.
And he clearly saw that when I died. The look on my face was positively beaming. What was I smiling about? Even though. Meanwhile, and she collapsed to her knees with a thud. How could Ancestor be gone just like that? Wasn't it supposed to be returning to simplicity and becoming invincible? Kang Yan Dao Jiyu's reinforcements lying in ambush were also stunned. Lu Chun was smarter this time, was actually scared of someone that fragile. So scared that he wiped out all his own elite troops. The reason he guarded the Forbidden's area to the death and were filled with humiliation and unwillingness. Lu Chun quickly wiped his cold sweat, becoming one with nature. Give them 2 big smacks each. All you heard was a thunderous boom. Then, Lu Chun put on his arrogant act again. Su Qing'an, why don't you keep crying? Stay away from me. Let's see if Lingxiao Pavilion. But above the Dharma phase, not a trace of broken meridians. My special ability suddenly activated. But looking at my unfathomable demeanor, he hurriedly summoned the sect's life-saving shield. Everyone saw another person identical to me appear. Disassembling Wanderer, Su Qing'an's big, watery eyes grew wide. How was Ancestor standing there alive again? You killed my Lingxiao Pavilion disciple, and closed my eyes. I've hidden my identity for 3,000 years. How dare you kill? Although it's hundreds of times stronger than the previous key refining stage. He screamed and shouted like a madman. Feeling my life force fading. 1,000 years later, Lu Chun, who's reached the peak of the Purple Mansion realm. As a transmigrator who controls the secrets of life and death, I've pushed my golden finger abilities to their absolute limit. Listen to my twisted laughter before dying. I get a score based on how much hate I stirred up before dying. And die in spectacular fashion. In her eyes, and replied flatly, with a flash of his blade. The higher the score, suspiciously stepping half a pace back. Looks like just running my mouth isn't enough. And right then, the vanguard of Kang Yan Dao Jiyu that had come seeking trouble. But with my current divine sea cultivation. And so I need to pull another reckless stunt. Never thought my useless senior brother would die at the hands of an ant like you. And rebuild the way of the sword. And still only got a B rating. You really deserve 1,000 cuts. Just like a lamb awaiting slaughter. I looked like an ordinary person with no cultivation left.
Had 0 spiritual.
A familiar figure from his nightmares appeared, and even their cold smiles look exactly the same. This Lu Chun. And even kick your back mountain spirit spring a couple of times. After landing the blow, Yu Shuangru Juo, and struck directly. The next second, Lone Star Sword Demon was split in 2 on the spot. No telling how many were mass-produced in this cave. After killing 2 Lingxiao Pavilion Grand Elders, Lu Chun, the moment I finished. You're getting cocky. Although the might of Lingxiao Pavilion was on the verge of destruction. Su Qing'an, are your ancestors made of paper? Even the ones crawling out of the ancestral tombs are hopeless. I walked out from the Forbidden's ground completely unharmed once more. started stirring restlessly. He feared I would, enraged. Last time, that forgotten dust swordmaster. I must figure out how to keep dying. Like sacrificing heroically for all living beings. Yet you want to get away unharmed. About to finish him off at the last moment. Standing proudly above the 9 heavens. Achieving the realm of no sword surpasses having a sword. The cultivation of the newcomer. Indulging in the exhilarating power of this new body. To arrange a farewell that moves heaven and earth for myself. I was so furious my teeth itched. Turns out the once glorious Lingxiao Pavilion. Lu Chun shouted at the surviving Kanjian disciples. In order to trigger my ability as soon as possible, the words thundered like an explosion. The next moment, so scared his soul was about to scatter. They're planning to raise Lingxiao Pavilion to the ground. And use it for a sky lantern? Yet, we're smashed into a pile of flesh on the ground. He suddenly opened his eyes. And realized, why don't you call a few more out? I knew this kind of fake strength was unreliable. And I kept up my rampant taunts, my great compassion sky palm, and with a knife hand strike, went right through my chest. Is a supreme spiritual secret art. Just a single sentence. Don't say I'm not giving you juniors a chance. Lu Chun quickly inspected his body inside, pressed it tightly on top of his head, just as he finished speaking, facing death. How are you still? Asked the senior's honorable name. My 2 senior brothers, the Moonstep Immortal Lords. Just as Lu Chun was secretly feeling proud. May we leave now? Flicked my fingers casually. A powerful primordial spirit sword key instantly pierced Lu Chun's collarbone. So with a glint in my eye, that's what you call using tactics. Stupid old fart. Even though my true cultivation was only at the basic key refining stage. Lu Chun burned with fury after killing. As long as I revealed my name, directly burned 100 years of lifespan, transforming into a terrifying blood blade, howled and sliced off the Moonstep Immortal Lord's head. Though I don't know what kind of strange evil art this is. Wipe out Kang Yan Daojiu completely. Stopped his bleeding and healed himself. Meanwhile, just now I pressured the enemy with vicious words. Sent an urgent report to the main force of Kanjian Daobones. He shivered in place for a full incense stick's time. There's an extremely ominous area in the rear mountains of Lingxiao Pavilion, fallen in a tragic beauty. Seeing the enemy so timid, even though their powers are weak and their minds aren't right, they somehow always feel impossible to kill off. A creepy sense of being like wildfires never ending. Spiritual energy flowed smoothly. Request the sect immediately send reinforcements at the Dharma manifestation realm. Come help. After crushing the message talisman, Lu Chun advanced on Su Qing'an with a blood-dripping blade. This endlessly twisted mission has exhausted all his patience. All he wants now is to kill everyone and go home to cuddle his wife. Confronting a mysterious figure like me, a pair of icy hands suddenly landed on his shoulders. I am the disassembling wanderer. But before I finished speaking, Lu Chun's matte grin froze on his face, sending him flying dozens of yards. Now all of you kill yourselves right where you stand. Old bastard. A female disciple came to the back mountain, knocking on the ground and begging fervently. No honor in martial arts. Lu Chun climbed up in embarrassment. I am Wanken the Swordmaster. Forcing himself to calm down. Now my cultivation has reached the Divine Sea realm. Looking at his serval posture, he couldn't help but feel a chill deep in his heart. If he gave it his all, the kill would only take a moment. Meanwhile, so I never actually had to draw my sword. Lu Chun bowed again. Are willing to offer 100 years' worth of our foundation as compensation. Acting like a reckless street thug, rushed into the blade light head-on. Even if, a bunch of identical old freaks. I pointed at his nose and started cursing him out. Lu Chun watched this brand new version of me. No one could react in time. You couldn't sense even the slightest sword aura. And when the news spread that I, the sword master, entered closed-door cultivation, ranting nonsense here, going insane, madly fighting. After locking horns for a full incense stick's time, I smacked Lu Chun on the back of the head. Finally let out a satisfying, hearty laugh. Didn't say a single useless word. Severely wounded. The #1 righteous sword master. Every time I'm thoroughly killed, shivered inside, something felt off. Seriously, off, every time one dies. There's always someone even stronger popping up. Who knows if the next one crawling out will be a transcendent realm master. Suppress him for me. Roared with all his might. Su Qing'an is so furious he spits blood. Get out of this hellish place. Lu Chan's body trembled violently. But now this one gives off divine sea-level pressure. He drew a spare dagger, took out dozens of enemy troops without lifting a finger. I paid no attention to their shock. Just want to walk away like nothing happened. Lu Chan's mental defenses completely collapsed. But compared to the one before me, I was supposed to grow 10 times stronger every time I was defeated. Go kneel and kowtow to that broken cave a few more times? I nonchalantly raised my right hand. Pressed down in midair. Spiritual energy within 100 miles erupted instantly. It transformed into a gigantic sky-covering hand. Came crashing down. I did all this. A deafening explosion. I won't just wipe out your whole clan. Trembled with admiration. But discovered, as one of the rare transmigrators without a system, how dare you sneak up from behind? And re-evaluated the quality of this new body. Was I going to take his soul next? I possessed terrifying power at the peak of the Dharma phase realm. In those second-rate sects, with immense prestige and seniority, can produce another ancestor now. There are nirvana saints of creation, and even the legendary mortal immortals. Ultimately, the Dharma phase realm in this world, his aura was obviously unstable. This must be another bluffing con artist. Earn a score. I stroked my chin and recalled my previous ways of dying. I found the scores were getting worse and worse, almost dropping below sea level. The bigger the power leap after resurrection, I need more unique and extraordinary ways to die. But right as Lu Chen raised his blade, just as I was plotting in secret, Su Qing'an finally snapped out of a string of shocks. He lunged at me in a flash. Lu Chen hurriedly swallowed piles of pills, just to lull that old monster into carelessness. Are all the ancestors buried in Lingshao Pavilion mentally challenged? Now only he was left alive. Noticing the strange stares around him, was to protect the sect's 1,000-year-old treasure. The thunderous 9 Dragons Cauldron. Kanjian Bladebone's Grand Elder, Lai Wushuang, is already a powerhouse at Creation Realm Stage 3. If they don't get the 9 Dragons Cauldron to keep anything dangerous from crawling out of this demon cave, I casually took the ancient heavy cauldron and tucked it into my robe, realizing he'd actually been played by a primordial spirit-level old freak. How can I use this old fox Lai Wushuang? Reach the suffocating primordial spirit realm. Meanwhile, up in the sky, current Lingshao Pavilion Master Su Qing'an's face went completely pale. It was crushing the clouds, sailing toward Lingshao Pavilion. On the warship's deck, Kanjian's patriarch Lai Wushuang frowned deeply. He had just received a blood talisman from Lu Chen as he was dying, asking for help and suggesting there's still a living fossil in Lingxiao Pavilion is nothing more than a slightly stronger ant. Lu Chen suppressed his fury and shouted. What's even more heartbreaking is Lu Chen's death. He dedicated a century of effort to it, fed countless rare heavenly treasures into that seething cauldron. He was just waiting to use it for soul transfer when his lifespan ran out. Never would he have imagined this perfect body would be lost in the fallen Lingshao Pavilion. Thinking of this, Lai Wushuang's eyes ignited with murderous intent, and he spoke coldly to the Grand Elder beside him. Lu Chen's death was too humiliating. Soon we'll lay Lingshao Pavilion to waste. Capture that pretentious old bastard alive. I'll tear out his tendons and skin him alive. Render him into corpse oil to light the celestial lantern. The Grand Elder ecstatically accepted the order, volunteering to lead the charge. But before he could order the battleships to open fire, a solitary figure appeared like a ghost, silently materializing atop the main mast of the warship. Kenyan, blade-boned, notorious for evil deeds. And today you dare cause trouble in Lingshao Pavilion's territory. I am the Golden Dragon Dao Master. If any of you have the guts, come at me together. Seeing his enemy, he actually dares to board alone, weapon in hand. The Grand Elder was so enraged he sneered. Unleashing the overwhelming power of Creation Realm, first stage. He exploded his power without holding back. He immediately unleashed a full-force attack, starting with a world-destroying kill move. That giant hand aimed to pulverize me into a bloody rain. As the two earth-shattering forces collided fiercely in midair, the void shook. I stood firm like a mountain, didn't move an inch. But the once unrivaled Grand Elder was struck as if by lightning, vomiting blood uncontrollably, blown back 100 yards. Both in Creation Realm, but the difference in combat power was clear. I looked at the feeble Grand Elder, secretly sighing in my heart. The opponent was too weak. How am I supposed to earn a high death rating with this? To force a challenge for myself, I deliberately burst out laughing. Arrogantly provoked, saying a mere firefly's light dares to compete with the glorious moon. Within 3 moves? If I can't end your miserable life, I'll shatter my own skull right here. The moment those words came out, the Grand Elder's face turned liver-colored. Utter humiliation. We're both Creation Realm, first stage. What gives you the guts not to take me seriously? He roared, burned his essence blood, transformed into a massive blood-red lion, opened its bloody maw, lunging to bite me. I didn't dodge or evade. Its huge mouth lunged at me. I didn't dodge or evade. Formed a sword with my fingers. Activated this body's ancient inheritance, the great golden dragon art. Seemingly ordinary, I pointed my finger. But faintly, a true dragon's roar echoed through the sky. Invisible sword intent instantly shredded the blood lion into pieces. Even the Grand Elder's protective aura was torn apart like paper. On his body, countless terrifying sword wounds deep to the bone appeared. The Grand Elder never dreamed he'd be instantly killed by a cultivator of the same realm. Frightened out of his mind,
He tumbled, scrambling toward Lai Wushwang for help.
Lai Wushwang watched his subordinate embarrass himself this badly. Suddenly felt a loss of face. Decisively, he secretly activated 3 vicious soul-destroying poison needles, sealing off all my escape routes. Ordinary cultivators facing such an insidious ambush would instinctively retreat and defend. But death to me is just respawning and leveling up. Not only did I not dodge, I actively charged straight into the needles. In an instant, the golden dragon's sword intent erupted to the extreme, striking the Grand Elder. Golden dragon sword intent erupted to the extreme, striking the Grand Elder, and shredded all 3 poison needles along with him. The aftermath of this sword strike was terrifying. It even sliced a giant crack in the 1,000-foot-long bronze war sword. A massive fissure appeared. If Lai Wushwang hadn't desperately stabilized the formation, the entire warship would have crashed right then. Although the Grand Elder died miserably, Lai Wushwang wasn't angry at all. Instead, his eyes flashed with wild joy. After that strike, he had completely figured out my true power. This golden dragon Dao master may have astonishing sword skills, but their true cultivation is only Creation Realm, first stage.
He's Creation Realm, 3rd stage himself.
Squashing him is as easy as crushing an ant. However, before he could play up his ancestor status and announce his name, I was already committed to dying. Transformed into a dazzling light, launched a suicide charge at him. Faced with this utterly reckless mad dog tactic, Ni Wushwang felt an unprecedented life-or-death crisis. He screamed in terror, immediately joined forces with the 5 remaining elders on the ship, burned their origins without hesitation, frantically tried to block me. After exploding over a dozen top-grade defensive treasures in succession, they barely managed to suppress my self-detonation. As the storm and smoke cleared, 3 of the elders had shattered dantians. 2 were instantly reduced to dust. Lai Wushwang himself was disheveled, crouched on the deck, violently coughing up black blood. Are all the people of Lingxiao Pavilion insane? Experts are supposed to probe each other when fighting. Counter moves with moves, aren't they? Who doesn't even throw out a few harsh lines? and go straight for a mutual destruction attack. Even though we survived in the end, winning felt worse than eating a fly. This injury damaged my Dao foundation. I'll need at least 100 years of seclusion to recover. After calming his turbulent qi and blood, Lai Wushwang wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, grinned viciously as he locked his gaze below. Shivering with fear, little bitch Su Qing'an, you Lingxiao Pavilion folks surely don't have an ancestor left, right? He asked a question. But Lai Wushwang was more certain than anyone. How could there be anyone stronger left? If there was deeper power, they would have come out and slapped me to death already. No need for that crazy old man to resort to self-destruction for mutual demise. Thinking about this, Lai Wushwang laughed wildly at the sky. His laughter filled with the thrill of surviving catastrophe. But he'd only laughed twice, when he suddenly sounded like a strangled duck. His voice cut off abruptly, because a cold, solitary voice sounded like a death sentence, slowly echoed from deep in the Forbidden Land. I am the celestial monarch. As that figure stepped out, shattering the void, the colors of the world instantly faded. All things around were pulled into a scene like an ink painting. Within the painting, lone wind and cold moon, sword energy crisscrossing, stirred a supreme phenomenon resonating with heaven and earth. Lai Wushwang's eyes nearly popped out. His heart almost stopped beating. He couldn't believe. This ruined Lingxiao Pavilion, still concealed, a peerless savage capable of invoking heavenly phenomena. For someone of this level, killing him wouldn't even require a second move. I must flee, Lai Wushwang decided instantly. Without hesitation, he struck and shattered the 3 severely wounded elders beside him. With a single palm, crushed them to extract their vital essence, used the most sinister blood escape technique, transformed into a streak of bloodlight, instantly escaped 1,000 miles away. Those 3 innocent elders didn't even have time to scream, were shredded into bloody mist by the sword shadows within the scroll. After fleeing 10,000 miles away, Lai Wushwang still felt chills down his spine. He had already run so far, yet he still couldn't escape the reach of the ink scroll. This is not just a creation realm. This is obviously a monster that's half-step nirvana realm. These so-called righteous sects, how are they even more cunning and insidious than the demon cultivators? With such a nuke-level trump card, why didn't they reveal it earlier? If you had revealed it, I would have bolted ages ago. Suddenly, in Lai Wushwang's mind, flashed the warning Lu Chun sent before his death. Every ancestor who appears is stronger than the last. So does that mean, behind this world-shaking heavenly lord, there are even Nirvana realm or Sage realm supreme beings sleeping? With this thought, Lai Wushwang was scared out of his wits. Once again frantically burned hundreds of years of lifespan. Risked everything to flee towards the direction of the Nether Ancient Hall. Fled towards the direction of the Old Hall. His only hope to survive now is to beg those soul-manipulating monsters for protection. Meanwhile, seeing that Lai Wushwang was running faster than a rabbit, I didn't bother chasing him. After all, hacking down a terrified stray dog like him won't earn me any high scores. The urgent matter is to raid the lair of Kanjian Bladebone directly and see if there's anything hidden inside, like an elder monster strong enough to slap me to death. After making up my mind, I turned and landed back on the ground. Briefly explained a few things to Su Qing'an regarding the reconstruction of the sect. Then summoned the 9-dragon cauldron, transformed into a stream of light, and sped towards Kanjian Bladebone's territory. Su Qing'an watched my departing figure, tears blurring his vision. The sacrifices made by successive ancestors finally brought Lingxiao Pavilion a hint of hope. But thinking of those ancestors who died with no remains left, his heart was filled with deep sorrow. Quietly found a few blue stones and started carving a memorial tablet for me with tears streaming down. At the same time, I rode the 9-dragon cauldron and descended directly at the gates of Kanjian Blade Valley. Landed above the gates of Kanjian Bladebone. The demon cultivators left behind thought it was their ancestor returning victorious. They were decorating and preparing to celebrate. Completely off guard. I couldn't be bothered to waste words. Directly tossed the ink scroll into the sky. In an instant, a lonely wind and cold moon, an anomaly shrouded 100,000 miles around. A giant divine sword, like a heavenly galaxy, condensed by the will of divine punishment, descended with power to destroy all. Kanjian Bladebone, inherited for thousands of years, didn't even have time to scream. Under my sword, was reduced to an unfathomable wasteland. Seeing the massive enemies below, evaporated instantly from existence. Not only was I not happy, I actually felt a bit troubled. This new body of mine called the world-suppressing Heavenly Lord is way too powerful. Not only is my cultivation impressive, but it comes with a supreme technique, divine judgment, with absolute crushing power. Even against a true early nirvana realm, I can still put up a fight. No, I seriously need to find stronger enemies, or else who knows when I'll level up again. With this thought, I arrived at the scattered cultivators' cloud. With this thought, I came to Destiny City where the rogue cultivators gather. Wanted to find Bai Shaosheng, the famous intelligence master, by some real information. And when Mo Swanshan was divining fate, he heard that I was the lone warrior who wiped out Kanjin Bladebone single-handedly. He grew extremely interested then. He'd long been curious about that strange forbidden ground of Lingzhou Pavilion. Full of curiosity, now he finally saw the living legend. He couldn't resist the itch, wanting to use his fate disc to divine my destiny. But just as he secretly activated the fate disc to peek at my past and present life, the sky above Destiny City changed from clear to pitch black instantly. Became as dark as ink. High up in the heavens, a purple lightning bolt, scornful of fate, started to gather wildly. As if should he dare continue divining, even if all the millions in the city died with him, he wouldn't be spared from the world's destruction. Just by glimpsing at the surface of causality, Mo Swanshan coughed up a mouthful of black blood. 100 years of lifespan evaporated instantly. Terrified, he quickly cut off the connection with the fate disc. Kneeled on the ground, trembling in fear. Kneeled on the ground, trembling in fear. Though he couldn't find out what kind of monster I am, he is absolutely sure by now that I'm definitely a reincarnation of some ancient forbidden's powerhouse. About the requests I made, he wouldn't dare slack off in the slightest. Promptly handed me the information I wanted with both hands. Turns out after Lai Wushuang fled for his life, he went to seek shelter with his master at the Nether Ancient Hall. The Nether Ancient Hall's power is unfathomably deep. Headed by the demonic overlord, Old Skeleton Demon, his cultivation had long reached the early Nirvana realm. And his subordinates, the Nether Three Fiends, are all peak creation realm top-tier experts. Even more frightening, the true identity of these three fiends is actually the illegitimate sons of a hidden evil sovereign. Their backgrounds are outrageously strong. As Mo Swanshan trembled, he handed me a jade slip. Inside were detailed coordinates to the Nether Ancient Hall, as a gesture to fend off disaster and curry favor. Taking the jade slip, my eyes flashed with fanatic excitement. I'm not even concerned about their Nirvana Realm sect master. It's those illegitimate sons of that evil sovereign I'm after. If I openly twist off the heads of those three privileged brats, if I openly twist off the heads of those three second-generation elites, it'll definitely force that hidden evil sovereign to come for revenge. When I get killed by the evil sovereign, the score will break the scale. Thinking this, I tossed Mo Swanshan a spirit stone and impatiently ripped open the void, heading straight for the Nether Ancient Hall. Meanwhile, Lai Wushuang, like a dead dog, crawled into the gates of the Nether Ancient Hall. But before he could even drink water or catch his breath, he received devastating news that his home was completely wiped out. The entire mountain and everyone were wiped by my sword. Not even a dog survived. Upon hearing the news, Lai Wushuang's eyes rolled back, almost went mad, and dropped dead on the spot. The hall's physician force-fed him some strong medicine. After waking up, he scrambled on all fours to the feet of the Nether Three Fiends. crying and begging them to get justice for him. After all, snatching the 9-dragon cauldron was a death mission given by the ancient hall. Even though he killed Lingjiao Pavilion's disciples for his own credit,
He was still carrying out orders for the ancient hall.
the nether 3 fiends sat high on their throne of bones, overlooking him from above. Looking down, Hunter Wushuang, lying there like a pile of useless mud. His gaze is as cold and indifferent as if he's staring at a corpse. From their perspective, the ancestor of the Lingxiao Pavilion must have run out of fuel and is at the end of his rope. He's just having a last burst of strength before dying. Although they aren't afraid of a mere peak-level creation realm cultivator, the ancient hall doesn't want to unnecessarily provoke a suicidal lunatic like this. With that in mind, the leader of the 3 deaths snorted coldly. He was about to issue the order to kick him out. He was ready to throw Hunter Wushuang out as a discarded pawn. But just then, high above the Grand Hall, a massive ink-washed scroll began to unfurl across the sky, enveloping the entire eternal mountain range. The Heavenly Lord had come knocking. Hunter Wushuang, already scared out of his wits, let out a scream that was barely human. Using both hands and feet, he crawled into the dark corner beneath the throne. Seeing this, the 3 deaths erupted with fury, but could only grit their teeth and rush out of the hall to face the battle. Outside the hall, the battlefield had already become a living hell. From the ink-washed scroll, countless icy sword auras poured down. Explosions erupted one after another. Disciples of the 5 halls were slaughtered horribly. Casualties were immense. Corpses littered the ground everywhere. Even the elders who were usually so arrogant were killed. Several supposedly indestructible sect defense arrays were utterly blasted to pieces. Barely a moment in the fight, they suffered staggering losses. The 3 deaths were so furious their eyes almost popped out. Their rage seemed to explode from every pore. The proud holy land of the demon Tao. When has anyone ever dared to storm in and treat them like dogs to be chased? The other side is pushing their luck far too much. Did they really think the ancient hall is just made of clay? An old has-been from a declining sect trying to turn the world upside down. Unable to accept it, at this point, the leader of the 3 deaths let out a furious roar, summoning the sect's ultimate treasure, the everlasting soul-devouring banner. All 3 of them unleashed all of their peak creation realm strength. They also conjured up a blood-colored vision that blocked out the sky. Countless vengeful spirits roared, soaring into the heavens, clashing fiercely with my lonely wind and cold moon phenomenon. A tremendous sound seemed to tear the world itself apart. The terrifying shockwave leveled mountains within 100 miles. When the dust finally settled, I didn't spit blood and retreat like they expected. Instead, I walked with confidence through the air, subtly suppressing the blood-red vision they conjured. On the first exchange, I sent waves of shock through the hearts of the 3 deaths. They quickly abandoned all their previous arrogance and began to treat me as their most formidable rival ever. Meanwhile, down below the battlefield, the Tanlin, the young master of the ancient hall of nether darkness, grinned crookedly, a greedy green light flashing in his eyes. His dad, the evil sovereign, had taught him a forbidden demonic technique that lets him forcibly strip away the essence of others' phenomena and make it his own. That old undead from Lingxiao Pavilion actually dared to come straight to his door. It was basically a giant gift from heaven. If he could devour that inkwash phenomenon, he would definitely achieve a breakthrough to nirvana. Thinking of this, the Tanlin shouted to the 3 deaths who were barely holding on, "Leave him alive. Don't kill him. This young master has big plans." The 3 deaths almost coughed up blood at his words, silently cursing whether their young master had boiled his brain in magma. This kind of monster. Even with all 3 of them fighting with their lives, they might not win. Yet he's asking them to leave this guy alive. Just as the 3 were distracted and frustrated. Meanwhile, on the other side, I saw the tension had been ramped up enough. It was about time for me to exit the stage. From the moment I came out of seclusion, I've maintained the highest level of output. My phenomenon was operating at full power. My magical energy was long since emptied out. If I kept fighting, The moment I showed any weakness, I might be judged as exhausted and killed, causing my score to plummet. At this point, a flash of determination crossed my eyes. I suddenly stopped all attacks and laughed wildly, feeling a sense of release. Then, I reversed all my meridians without hesitation. The inkwash scroll covering the sky suddenly compressed to its limit, and then exploded, turning into a white inferno that destroyed everything. The leader of the three deaths' eyes were almost popping out of their sockets. His whole face screamed unbelievable. Is this guy nuts or what? With victory in hand, and about to win, why would he suddenly self-destruct? But the Grim Reaper's scythe was already at their throats. There was no time to ponder. This was the ultimate self-preservation move of a half-step Nirvana realm, backed by a top-tier phenomenon. An ultimate self-sacrifice defense with a supreme phenomenon. The only thing they could do was to throw out every last life-saving treasure they had, and pray they could keep their whole corpse. As for the young master, the Tianlin, who was only at the Purple Mansion realm dreaming of devouring power,
His luck wasn't nearly as good.
the self-destruction's blast perfectly enveloped him. Dozens of protective spirit treasures on him didn't last even a second, instantly reduced to dust. His personal protector was vaporized without even uttering a sound. Faced with this apocalyptic disaster, he didn't even get a chance to pull out his evil sovereign dad's reputation. No time for any posturing at all. The evil sovereign's beloved son was wiped out just like that, blasted away into nothing but dust in this world. The mushroom cloud rolled for half an hour before gradually fading away. Just then, an ancient and enraged roar erupted from deep underground. The sect leader, Old Bone Demon, who was in retreat attempting a breakthrough, was forcibly awakened. As a powerhouse in the early Nirvana realm, he usually paid no mind to minor disturbances outside. But the force of this self-destruction was enormous. It directly destroyed his secluded cultivation chamber, burying him alive. He suffered severe backlash as a result, barely resisting the urge to vomit blood. Old Bone Demon rushed out of the ruins and looked, almost fainting on the spot. The demon holy land he had painstakingly built over hundreds of years was now just a bottomless crater. Even worse, the evil sovereign's precious son left in his care didn't even leave a single hair behind. And the old man responsible for this catastrophe didn't even leave a corpse. Even Hunter Wushuang, who came to deliver the news at the start, had already slipped away before the battle began. He escaped early. Old Bone Demon, furious, frantically searched through the ruins, hoping to find my remnant soul for revenge. But all he found in a shattered soul imprint stone was my brilliant smile before I self-destructed, just before the end. What was he smiling about? Insane! The whole bunch is insane. On the other side, it's the same old formula, the same old flavor. I, Shuang Ruo Zhuo, walked out of the forbidden grounds of Lingshao Pavilion, swaggering as if nothing happened. This time's death score swaggered out confidently. This session's death rating, because I successfully lured the opponent into losing composure and self-destructed at the peak moment, reached an unprecedented level 1. My cultivation soared like a rocket, directly skyrocketing to Nirvana Stage 8, becoming a true legendary powerhouse. Seeing the ancestor tablet just placed, turned around to see a brand new ancestor, Su Qing'an, walking out of the cave. He was completely numb. Didn't know whether to laugh or cry. If his guess was right, knowing the celestial lord, the ancestor must have died heroically. I nodded slightly, confirmed his guess in the calmest tone, and proactively picked up an incense stick, walked to the neatly arranged ancestor tablets, lit incense for each of my past lives' personas, and bowed ceremoniously. This feeling of visiting my own grave, though extremely bizarre, but isn't it the highest recognition for all my efforts at courting death? Thinking of this, I brushed off the ashes from my hands, planning to head toward the Nether Ancient Hall. That skeletal old fiend got caught in the blast from my past life self-destruction. Seriously injured, he definitely won't let it slide. Instead of waiting for him to recover, instead of waiting for the old monster to heal and come seeking revenge, bringing a crowd to attack, It's better to strike while he's still weak. Eliminate any future threats once and for all. Seeing me just come out, without even a sip of water, about to fly off again on my sword, Suking'un's eyes turned red. He stepped forward, firmly clutched the corner of my robe, and asked tremblingly, "Ancestor, will you come back this time?" I paused slightly, without turning back, simply waved the burning dust in my hand, and replied lightly, "I'll be back. Ling Shao never dies. I last forever." With that, the martial emperor of burning heavens stepped and shattered the void, turned into a blazing meteor, vanished into the horizon. Meanwhile, in Tianji City, headquarters of the Nether Ancient Hall, the shocking rumor of the Lingxiao Pavilion's ancestor annihilating everything had spread across every street and alley. Mo Swanshen, who knew it was all my doing, was so scared he hurriedly changed into a stealthy night outfit, planning to rush to the front lines himself to document for Changju Tower this sect battle worthy of going down in history. Besides him, countless rogue cultivators like sharks smelling blood. Besides him, countless rogue cultivators like sharks sensing blood swarmed in. Most of them had suffered at the hands of the demon sect. Now, hearing the demon overlord was declining, all rushed from afar, claiming to slay demons, but actually trying to take advantage of the chaos, looking for treasures to loot from the ruins. For a moment, countless small skirmishes broke out on the ruins of the Nether Ancient Hall. Countless small-scale battles erupted. The skeletal old fiend was trembling with rage, but completely helpless. He forced his way out, which led to destabilized cultivation, with the risk of falling back to creation stage. To suppress these opportunistic rogue cultivators, and to preserve the last bit of his legacy, he bit his tongue, prepared to activate the ultimate taboo deep within the ancient hall, seal the abyss of 10,000 demons. But before he could drip his blood into the formation's core, I, this living ancestor, arrived again, with burning flames at my feet, holding 9 heavens divine thunder at Nirvana stage, an 8th level terrifying aura pouring out, leaving nothing reserved, one after another, world-ending flames woven from heavenly fire and tribulation thunder, like a meteor shower, raining onto the underground palace where the skeletal old fiend hid. Fiercely smashing down, seeing the legendary undying ancestor of Lingxiao Pavilion. Unleashing power once more, the rogue cultivators who'd been watching instantly became highly motivated. All drew their magical artifacts, shouting and charging forward, afraid they'd be too late even for scraps. Although the skeletal old fiend fought desperately, summoned the Bone King for defense, but under overwhelming absolute power, none of it mattered. The temporary bone barrier was as fragile as an eggshell, shattered instantly. Even the palace ceiling was forcibly torn off, like defecating right on the demon cultivator's neck. As the skeletal old fiend let out a despairing roar, he had no choice but to forcibly detonate the source power of his nirvana scripture, morph into a giant bone hand blotting out the sky, clashed fiercely with my twin dragons of thunder and fire, shielded the remaining demon cultivators from this fatal blow. Yet he was already badly afflicted by backlash. After withstanding this blow, his cultivation completely collapsed, fell all the way back to the peak of creation stage. That previous round of bombing, though imposing as hell, almost drained the vast newly born power within me. But I had no intention of retreating. Squeezed out the last bit of potential, condensed another 100-yard-long thunderfire blade, chopped down with force enough to split mountains. The skeletal old fiend barely blocked this strike. Both arm bones shattered completely. With a thud, he knelt on both knees, gasped heavily, spewing black blood mixed with shredded internal organs. Sensing the enemy was utterly destroyed, I was overjoyed, knew it was time to rack up more points. Quickly turned around, shouted valiantly at the hungry rogue cultivators behind me. Righteously yelled, "This old demon has been seriously wounded by me. If you wish to uphold justice, seize this opportunity. If not now, then when?" Upon these words, the crowd became fired up. Demon slaying is now happening today. A mass of rogue cultivators flocked in like locusts, flooded the place. Wherever they went, no demon cultivator left a complete corpse behind. Truly wiped out everything. Even the floor tiles were stripped off. At this moment, stripped off a layer. Right then, the abyss of 10,000 demons sealed deep in the ruins lost its suppression from the skeletal old fiend. Suddenly emitted a chillingly eerie cracking sound. Two mysterious figures shrouded in black robes quietly emerged.
They
Were boundary inspectors sent by Burial Heaven Hall to audit their subordinate sects. Though Burial Heaven Hall is the superior to Nether Ancient Hall, these two special envoys arrived, not to rescue anyone, but to take away the Ancient Hall's last valuables, the last batch of treasures. Yet when they saw the fractured seal, they were so scared they stopped breathing, accompanied by a dense aura of utter despair, rushed skyward. And instantly, in a 10-mile radius, every cultivator, whether rogue or a demon, anyone touched by that black aura, turned into foul-smelling pus in an instant. Even the skeletal old fiend, the sect leader, wasn't spared, dragged straight into the abyss by a dark demon claw emerging from the black aura. Pulled into the depths, turned into monster fodder. Seeing this pure ancient malice awaken, Mo Swanshan, who was hiding in the shadows recording, turned pale. Mo Swanshan, who was recording the battle, turned as pale as a sheet. This underworld ancient palace is absolutely insane. They actually dared to suppress an ancient great evil beneath their own grounds. These bone-obsessed freaks damn well deserve to die. An ancient beast has emerged. It is not something human strength can contend with. This is a world-ending catastrophe, not even recorded in the secret scrolls of the Heavenly Mystery Tower. Without a moment's hesitation, Mo Swanshan ignited a priceless great demon robe, preparing to flee for his life. Before leaving, he gave me a deep look. His eyes were filled with pity and solemnity. After today's battle, no matter who wins or loses, this piece of hell will completely become a dead zone where no living soul can enter. If this great evil escapes, the entire northern desolation will be devastated. On the other side, high in the sky, under my reckless and costly bombardment, already exhausted, I faced this sudden change. Instead of having even a trace of fear, I was trembling with excitement. The destructive power within that black mist seemed to create a strange resonance with the resurrection mechanism inside my body. Instinct told me, as long as I could take this beast down with me, the score would definitely break through the roof. At least an S rank for sure. Thinking of this, golden light flared in my eyes. I pointed at the writhing black mist and laughed out loud. Good timing. Today I shall use you, beast, as a sacrifice to the heavens. Saying that, I forcibly burned my current life's destiny, compressing all the power of thunder and fire into my palm, turning it into a blinding little sun. Alone, like a moth to a flame, I crashed straight toward the beast enveloped in black mist. The rogue cultivators below, frantically fleeing for their lives, saw this soul-stirring scene. One by one, they stopped in their tracks, tears streaming from their eyes. Ancestor Burning Heaven Martial Emperor, we rogue cultivators will remember your kindness. To protect all living beings under heaven, the ancestor is actually willing to sacrifice himself. Senior Lin Fan deserves our deepest bow. From this day forward, our lives belong to the Lingxiao Pavilion. So what if we offend that ethereal heaven-burying pavilion? Those with nothing to lose fear nothing. If we live in cowardice today, demons of the heart will surely arise in our cultivation later. If we survive by dishonorable means, demons of the heart will surely arise in our cultivation later, making it impossible to advance further. As tens of thousands of rogue cultivators swore a great Tao oath in unison, they announced their recruitment into the Lingxiao Pavilion. The beast within that black mist let out an angry and wary roar. He wasn't afraid of any top-tier masters with supreme cultivation. What he feared was this conviction to face death unflinchingly. Once this conviction is scattered like seeds, the fire of righteousness will burn endlessly, and evil will never have its day. Looking at me, this old man whom countless people revered as a savior, the beast, made up its mind to extract my soul at all costs and suppress it beneath the 9 netherworlds to suffer day and night. Only by completely destroying me, this spiritual totem, Could it make these ants recall the despair of being dominated by fear once again? Thinking of this, the beast controlled the sky-filling black mist, turning it into countless pitch-black venomous snakes, opening their bloody maws to surge toward me frantically. Seeing that the time had come, the corner of my mouth curled into a cold, planned, successful smirk. I no longer hid anything, and immediately recited the self-detonation incantation engraved in my DNA. Heaven and earth endure together. All laws. Self-detonation incantation in my DNA. Heaven and earth endure together. All laws are nullified. Explode for me, along with a flash of light 10,000 times brighter than the sun. The deafening explosion echoed throughout the entire northern desolation. The rogue cultivators watching below all fell to their knees, weeping uncontrollably. Ancestor Linfan, his elderly self, has self-detonated again. Although a self-detonation at the 8th level of the Nirvana realm wasn't enough to completely kill that ancient beast, the supreme yang power produced by the explosion forcefully tore through the black mist, blasting that monster back into the depths of the seal. This battle thoroughly established the supreme dignity of the human race and broke the backbone of the demonic path's revival. The rogue cultivators I fought to save organized themselves spontaneously, escorting my ashes in a grand procession toward Lingxiao Pavilion. With their status as new outer disciples, they vowed to make Lingxiao Pavilion the world's #1 sect. At the same time, the stone door of the restricted area in the back mountain of my home slowly opened again. Strutting with a cocky, arrogant gait, I walked out once more. The death rating this time, because I successfully saved tens of thousands. The death rating this time, because I successfully saved tens of thousands of cultivators and sealed the ancient beast, soared directly to S+ rank. My cultivation even crossed the limits of mortals, breaking through to the first level of the Saint Realm in one go, becoming a supreme sovereign who could truly regenerate from a drop of blood, and whose words carried the force of law. Seeing yet another brand new ancestor awaken, Su Qing'an didn't even have time to wipe the mud from her face. She hurriedly put down the things in her hands, the identity tokens she was distributing to new disciples, and ran over to kneel in worship. Deeply afraid that if she arrived a second late, this great uncle of mine would go searching the world to blow himself up again. Several previous ancestors had barely stepped out of the cave before news from outside brought back obituaries of their heroic sacrifices. A few of them hadn't even let the disciples see what they looked like before remaining in legends forever. Now, seeing me standing here completely unharmed, she felt a pang of sorrow in her heart. If she hadn't run here to kowtow and beg for help back then, would the ancestors have been able to enjoy their old age in the restricted area? I noticed the deep self-blame and sorrow in her eyes. I smiled, reached out, and dotingly rubbed her head. I comforted her softly, saying, "Silly girl, don't be sad. Whether it's the dust-watching swordsman or the golden dragon Dao Lord, they all died for a worthy cause. As long as you are still here, the soul of Lingxiao Pavilion is not lost." Speaking of this, I suddenly remembered the miserable state of old monster Dry Bone before he died. According to Mo Swanshan's intelligence, the high and mighty heaven-bearing pavilion wasn't just some loose alliance, but a massive juggernaut formed by dozens of super-demonic sects. Once a behemoth with such deep foundations strikes, even if I have the infinite resurrection cheat. But now Lingxiao Pavilion consists of more than just Su, Qing'an, and me. At the foot of the mountain, tens of thousands have gathered by reputation, passionate men ready to rebuild the sect. To keep them safe in the coming storms, self-detonating alone isn't enough. I must leave them a powerful enough trump card. Thinking of this, I didn't waste a single second. I took a step forward, traveled 10,000 miles in an instant to the largest chamber of commerce in Tianji City, and using the supreme divine sense that came with this saint body, I forcibly plundered several top-tier spiritual veins. Then, with the momentum of a thunderbolt, conveniently wiped out the two closest subsidiary sects of the Heaven Burial Pavilion. Among them, the Blood Shadow sect, Was the hidden hand that secretly funded the Azure Flame Blade Bone and the Thousand Poison Bone sect? Was the accomplice responsible for providing poison to the Nether Ancient Hall? The entire series of moves was smooth and fluid, scaring the other members of the Heaven Burial Pavilion out of their wits. Now everyone in the cultivation world knows that the ancestors of the High Heaven Pavilion never play by the rules. They're absolute lunatics. Other ancestors fight by testing each other's trump cards. But these living Yomas start by dropping nuclear bombs. What does the first level of the Saint Realm represent? In those ancient super-sacred lands, they are beings to be enshrined in ancestral halls as mascots. A single closed-door meditation lasts thousands of years. Who the hell would take the hard-earned saint fruit and use it as a disposable explosive pack? But the ancestors of the High Heaven Pavilion simply don't care. If you dare to look at him one more time, he will immediately self-detonate right in front of you. If it weren't for the fact that inside the Heaven Burial Pavilion, there is an extremely cruel system of collective punishment. Many subsidiary systems. Many sect masters of subsidiary sects would have defected overnight and joined the High Heaven Pavilion. After finishing all this, I dusted myself off and flew back to the sect, utilizing the vast knowledge of formations in my new body. Within a 500-mile radius of the High Heaven Pavilion, I set up 99 same-grade killing formations. Meanwhile, in the sea of clouds millions of miles away, on the floating island of the Heaven Burial Pavilion, as I expected, things had already turned into a chaotic mess. Because Pavilion Master the Wuya was in deep meditation, attempting to break through to the legendary Earth realm. In the face of the current chaos, he could only spare a wisp of divine sense to command remotely through a destiny crystal, to stabilize the crumbling morale, and to re-establish the Heaven Burial Pavilions. Inviolable and supreme authority, he coldly issued the demon-slaying order, ordering the 4 great protectors and 10 Vajras to mobilize, vowing to raise the High Heaven Pavilion to the ground. In this battle, he not only wanted to uproot the High Heaven Pavilion, but also to kill every living thing within 10,000 miles, whether human or beast, to slaughter them all until everything was clean, to use this as a sacrifice for his illegitimate son who didn't even have time to report his name, before dying miserably in the self-detonation. Soon, the Heaven Burial Pavilion's fleet of warships approached Heavenly Mystery City in a grand and imposing manner. Millions of innocent citizens in the city looked at the steel behemoths blotting out the sky and were scared to death. The Heaven Burial Pavilion is a true leader of the demonic path, coming out in full force to seek revenge on the High Heaven Pavilion. There was a high probability they would conveniently slaughter all these mortals to vent their anger. Thinking of this, the city was filled with complaints. Some cowards who feared death began to publicly insult me, the troublemaker, saying I shouldn't have provoked such a giant. Now everything is ruined, and everyone is being dragged down with me. Sensing the shift in public opinion below, the Phantom General in charge of psychological warfare on the warship gave a cold laugh and directly threw out a heaven-echoing mirror, projecting the upcoming one-sided slaughter in real time to every corner of the northern wilderness. He wanted everyone to see with their own eyes how the High Heaven Pavilion would vanish into thin air in despair, to destroy the will to resist of everyone in the world. In the scene, as the world watched, the Heaven Burial Pavilion first sent out 2 world-renowned vanguard generals, the Sky-Swallowing Demon King and the Blood Key Ghost Mother. Both of them possess Saint Realm. Terrifying peak first-level cultivation. Even though my new body is titled the Primordial Supreme, and I also master the ultimate laws, without using the self-detonation cheat, taking on 2 at once would be no easy feat. Thinking of this, I stepped through the void and blocked their path directly. A crazy and bold idea quickly took root and sprouted in my heart. The 2 enemies thought this tough battle would last for 3 days and nights, but they never dreamed that as soon as I appeared, without even saying a word of introduction, the spiritual energy in my Danshin began to reverse frantically. Suddenly, the Blood Key Ghost Mother felt a spine-chilling aura of death locking onto her tightly. The Sky-Swallowing Demon King was even more terrified, his scalp tingling. They looked at each other, and in that single glance, saw endless panic in each other's eyes. Run! This is the ultimate self-preservation of a same-realm expert. This is the ultimate self-detonation of a same-realm expert. Even if their escape posture was uglier than a dog's, they had to use every ounce of their strength. To retreat, however, as the light of the saint's self-detonation illuminated the entire horizon, the world-destroying shockwave had already swallowed the hundreds of warships at the very front. On the ground, the tens of thousands of rogue cultivators who just joined the High Heaven Pavilion, seeing this familiar scene, instantly understood my painstaking intentions. With reddened eyes, they one after another detonated the top-grade spirit stones I had previously buried in the formation nodes. 99 same-grade killing formations were activated simultaneously. Countless pillars of destructive light soared from the ground, like a swarm of reverse-flying meteors, towards the Heaven Burial Pavilion's fleet in midair, executing a brutal saturation fire cover. This combined attack from above and below, a three-dimensional saturation strike from heaven and earth, not only instantly destroyed more than half of the enemy's forces, but also directly blocked all paths of retreat for the two demon kings. The two hung in midair, their eyes bulging out, vomiting blood in pure rage. Before the battle started, they had spent a fortune to buy battle recordings of the High Heaven Pavilion from the Heavenly Mystery Tower. Knowing well that I like to drag people down with me when I'm low on health. To guard against this move, they specifically brought Forbidden's treasures that could freeze space, waiting for the moment I was exhausted and ready to self-detonate, to seal me into a void rift in one go, making my self-detonation go to waste. But who the hell could have imagined that I, at full health and status, without even using a single ultimate move, would directly press the nuclear button? This simply subverts the fundamental logic of the cultivation world. From ancient times to the present, no one has ever seen such a freak who squanders his own life like this. On the warships, the elite disciples of the Heaven Burial Pavilion frantically formed seals, trying to jointly prop up a shield to resist the aftershocks of the self-detonation. However, in the next second, the shield shattered like a bubble. Screams echoed through the clouds. The bodies of the two arrogant vanguard generals were destroyed, leaving only a wisp of remnant soul to flee in panic. The originally 3,000 majestic warships now had fewer than 100 left, still emitting black smoke and barely holding on. Inside the High Heaven Pavilion, Su Qing'an and tens of thousands of new disciples looked up at the blood-red sky and wept. Together with tens of thousands of new disciples, they gazed up at the blood-red sky, crying uncontrollably. Yet another Grand Elder sacrificed himself for them without hesitation. With his unparalleled cultivation, if he had wanted to leave, who in the world could stop him? But the Primordial Supreme would rather be shattered to pieces, just to take the enemy down with him. Clearly, he gave his own life to carve out a path of survival for them. The millions of mortals inside Celestial City also witnessed everything, clearly through the projection of the heavenly mirror. Even those completely without cultivation, the ordinary folks who had just been cursing moments before, were now deeply moved by such noble self-sacrifice. Watching a righteous Grand Elder, a stranger to them, choose to self-destruct high in the sky to keep the city from harm, sparked courage in their hearts. A flicker of bravery was instantly ignited within them. They all turned their fury toward the Sky Burial Pavilion's fleet in the sky. In the scene, the heaven-swallowing Demon King and Blood Soul Queen, who barely escaped death, hid behind a few defeated soldiers and crash-landed in utter humiliation before the Lingxiao sect's gates. At this point, all they had left were remnants of their souls, with barely a tenth of their strength remaining. If only to save face, they tried to kill Su Qing'an, this ant, to vent their anger. Su Qing'an, who had just broken through to the Divine Sea Realm, didn't retreat at all. She resolutely drew her sword, even if it meant being shattered to pieces, just to hold out one more second for Lingxiao sect. He believed as long as they could hold on until the next Grand Elder awoke, Lingxiao sect would never fall. With this determined thought in mind, from the depths of the Forbidden's area, A wave of supreme pressure suddenly erupted, causing the entire eternal mountain range to tremble in fear. This aura was so pure. It had already surpassed the realm of a sage. I could feel within me a power strong enough to shatter stars. As I calmly walked out of the stone gate, this time the death rating was set as S tier because the scene was so overwhelming. It was judged as S's level. Even though my cultivation didn't directly break through to the Emperor realm, it still reached the astonishing sage level, 9th heaven peak, just half a step away from the Emperor threshold. But even so, the heaven-swallowing Demon King and Blood Soul Queen, left as lingering souls, were nearly scared out of their minds. In the past, I'd only heard reports from subordinates that Lingxiao sect's living fossils were endless. Today, I finally experienced real despair firsthand. Now I truly know what absolute despair is. As I slowly uttered the name Primordial Tao Sovereign, the two of them were struck with utter dread. How the hell are we supposed to fight this? Just the self-detonation of the Primordial Supreme wiped out half their foundation. If this Primordial Tao Sovereign self-destructs again, the entire northern wasteland would be blasted back to the Stone Age. Thinking this through, the heaven-swallowing Demon King's remnant soul dropped to his knees with a thud.
He managed to squeeze out a grimace uglier than a cry.
Senior, please calm your anger. A wise man adapts to circumstances. Your world-shaking cultivation has not come easy. As long as you show mercy and join our Sky Burial Pavilion, our leader will grant you 100,000 years of lifespan. With time, perhaps you'll even become an emperor. Why insist on fighting to the death for these ants? I looked at him coldly, without replying a single word, and instead smacked him with a backhand slap. They never imagined that when offered the irresistible temptation of 100,000 years of life, I would kill without hesitation. I would strike mercilessly without a second thought. They were already just lingering souls, and completely defenseless. They didn't even have time to beg for mercy before I slapped them into countless motes of light. After confirming no enemies were left alive nearby, I took a deep breath, sat cross-legged in midair, and started channeling the primordial law to refine my energy. The last explosion was a self-destruction, which killed countless enemies, but taught me a lesson. Ever since I left the mountain, the number of demonic cultivators killed by my hands may not total 100,000, but it's at least 80,000. Letting those sin-stained souls simply dissipate doesn't align with the idea of resource recycling and environmental protection. Fortunately, this new body is skilled in the laws of creation, so I decided to craft a supreme treasure specifically for Lingxiao sect. From now on, any enemy I kill will have their soul forcibly converted into pure faith power. This will not only nourish the sect's fortune, but maybe someday it could even evolve into a true ultimate emperor weapon. Under the awed eyes of Su Qing'an and tens of thousands of disciples, a giant radiant golden lotus, shining with dazzling golden light, pure and sacred beyond belief, slowly blossomed in the palm of my hand. Finally, I took in the scattered soul fragments of the heaven-swallowing Demon King and Blood Soul Queen, drawing them into the lotus. After 2 shrill, miserable screams, the golden light shone even brighter. Let's call it the Salvation Golden Lotus. Meanwhile, aboard the last surviving flagship of Sky Burial Pavilion, the pavilion master, the Wuya, realized that their 2 vanguards were truly gone, and his expression turned as dark as water. For such a declining Lingxiao sect, could it really be this unbreakable, unbeatable force? It seems there's no choice but to use the final trump card. At this thought, he ordered the twin absolute envoys to gather the 18 remaining Saint Elders in the pavilion, forming the world-ending immortal slaying formation, and prepared for the final blow. After I finished cultivating, I just took a shallow breath. Then I dragged that dazzling Salvation Golden Lotus and instantly ascended to the enemy lines. At this moment, the twin absolute envoys were also ready to fight to the death. But when they saw my cultivation, they were both stunned. When they realized my level, their faces were blank with disbelief. Primordial Tao Sovereign, Sage Realm, 9th Heaven Peak. This can't be right. Didn't the intel say that the highest level the first two self-destructed reached was Sage Tier 1? Isn't this leap a bit too much? Eager to prove himself, the left absolute envoy shouted angrily, activating the core of the immortal slaying formation first, and unleashed a chaotic sword energy strong enough to level mountains and seas towards me. Seeing this, I remained calm, gently spinning the Salvation Golden Lotus in my hand. Sacred chanting filled the air. Golden Buddhist light rippled out like waves, instantly transforming the sword energy into a shower of petals. A flowery rain filled the sky. Seeing the power of this lotus, the left absolute envoy panicked completely. What kind of strange treasure is this? It can even neutralize the immortal slaying formation's killing move. But in that split second, countless chains, condensed from pure Buddhist light, suddenly extended from the lotus, binding him tight. While I sneered coldly, the lotus erupted with blinding brilliance and began a forced brainwashing. In just a few breaths, the left absolute envoy, once a ruthless killer, the once merciless left enlightenment envoy, actually shaved off all his hair, put on a simple monk's robe, pressed his palms together, sat cross-legged in midair, and started tapping a wooden fish, chanting Amitabha Buddha, sign, sign. Witnessing this scene, the right enlightenment envoy nearly peed himself in fear. Damn, what kind of bizarre artifact is this? This isn't a golden lotus. This is clearly the orthodox version of the 10,000 soul banner. A ruthless, evil cultivator, forcefully converted into a monk who beats the wooden fish. That's 1,000 times more cruel than just killing them. Inside this Salvation Golden Lotus, it wipes away all their cultivation and forces them to repent day and night for the sins they've committed for eternity. As long as you hold the Golden Lotus, it's like having an army of enlightened monks who won't fight back or retaliate, only illuminating you with Buddhist light. Now that the another enlightenment envoy knows the situation is hopeless, he immediately abandons his companions, turns to tear open space and try to escape back to headquarters. But as soon as he turns around,
He despairingly discovers
those 18 elder sages had already taken the tonsure together under the radiance of the Golden Lotus. Were all ordained under the Golden Lotus's Buddhist light, becoming monks, now forming a circle around him and chanting rebirth mantras. I didn't miss this perfect opening. With a turn of the Golden Lotus, he was collected into its blossom as well. With these powerful monk workers, I feel very confident about soloing the Burial Heaven Pavilion next. Full of confidence. But just then, I suddenly felt a sweet taste in my throat and spat out a mouthful of golden primordial blood. My body uncontrollably fell from the sky. I knew in my heart it was from forcing the Salvation Golden Lotus to overclock and brainwash against realms, draining what little lifespan this body had left. Looks like I won't make it to rush into enemy lines to self-destruct. Thinking this, I tried to stabilize myself, slowly landing on the plaza of Lingxiao Pavilion, explaining my final wishes to Su Qingyan and the disciples. This Salvation Golden Lotus will become the symbol of our Lingxiao Pavilion in the future. It's already birthed a sentient spirit. Once I pass away, it'll automatically float above the sect, protecting you from evil cultivators. So, when you see those old enemies become monks, don't feel so. When you see those old enemies become monks, don't be afraid. Su Qingyan nodded with tears in her eyes, biting her lip to keep herself from crying out loud. When she looked up again, the Supreme Tao Patriarch had already closed his eyes and turned into a lifelike stone statue, silent and motionless. Watching the Golden Lotus floating above the statue, radiating peaceful Buddhist light, the new disciples looked at each other. Just a moment ago, they saw for themselves how the Patriarch forcibly converted people. Such domineering tactics really didn't seem like traditional Orthodox ways. Instead, it felt more like those old monsters who control minds with evil magic. Noticing the doubt in their eyes, Su Qingyan wiped away her tears and sternly lectured about the Supreme Tao Patriarch. The Patriarch said this is the Salvation Golden Lotus. Then that's what it is. The Patriarch is merciful, giving those evil cultivators a chance to put down their weapons and become Buddha instantly. What immense compassion. Hearing this, the disciples lowered their heads in shame. Yeah, if it weren't for the patriarchs fighting to the death, they would have already become souls under an evil cultivator's blade. Even if the patriarch used the 10,000 soul banner dressed as monks. As long as it was to protect them, that makes it the most righteous thing in the world. Amidst the disciples chanting praises for the patriarch's compassion, in the midst of their acclaim, my restless soul, Yu Shuangruozuo, was reconstructed deep in the Forbidden's land. This time, my death rating broke all conventions, reaching an unprecedented X grade. My new body's title, Limitless Abyss, and my cultivation finally crossed the chasm, becoming a true, flawless emperor. With every move, I seemed to control the star's life force. In terms of this world's highest power level, I am the undisputed top. Even if a true immortal descended, I could cut them down with one sword. With this unparalleled invincible cultivation, and the Salvation Golden Lotus as my ultimate weapon, I no longer need to play any cat-and-mouse games with Burial Heaven Pavilion. No more pretending to be weak. It's time for those bastards to experience what real dimensional suppression means. Once I made up my mind, I didn't even say goodbye, moved by thought, and directly tore through millions of miles of space, manifesting inside the Burial Heaven Pavilion's main hall, sensing a force strong enough to destroy the world pressing in. The pavilion master, the Wuya, was forcibly dragged out from seclusion, his face pale as paper, seeing his subordinates explode from the imperial pressure, dying one after another. He felt an unprecedented sense of helplessness. His cultivation is stuck at quasi-emperor peak, just one step from the true emperor realm. That gap may seem thin as a paper window, but in reality it's worlds apart. Besides, this mad patriarch of Lingshao Pavilion never plays by the rules. He'd self-destruct at the drop of a hat. For him, this battle isn't 9 lives and 1 death. It's 10 deaths, no life. But at this point,
He has nowhere left to retreat.
as the leader of the demonic path, his dignity won't allow surrender without a fight. Burning his essence furiously, he triggered the 10 hidden dragon veins under Burial Heaven Pavilion. In the sky, the dragon veins churned the clouds into pools of blood, with ghosts howling, no longer the usual law resonance, but truly borrowing a piece of heaven's destructive will, as if to wipe out me and this entire realm. A quasi-emperor's desperate attack is terrifying to this degree. The Wuya roared angrily into the sky, leaping up covered in blood, attempting to use his body to trigger heaven's destructive power. Seeing the Wuya's heroic resolve, ready to die for righteousness, I honestly felt nothing, almost wanted to laugh. Is this old guy mistaken or something? I'm a flawless emperor. You're not even at the threshold of the emperor realm, and you still dream of dragging me down with you? That's like an ant doing push-ups in front of a Tyrannosaurus Rex, hoping its strong chest could kill the T-Rex. Absurd. But seeing how hard he tried, I decided to save his dignity and not slap him to death. I slowly raised my right hand, without using any spiritual power, purely relying on the instincts of my emperor body, and gently pressed down into the void. Gently pressed toward the void. There was only a muffled buzzing sound. The entire world seemed to be paused at that very moment. The swirling blood clouds instantly froze. Those 10 dragon veins that had just been detonated let out a chorus of agonized wails, were forcefully pressed back deep underground, and reverted back into gentle spiritual energy. As for the one who thought he could command the will of heaven, the Wuya, at this moment he looked like a mosquito slapped flat against the wall, stuck to the void, limbs splayed out, unable to move even a single finger. The might of the earth, what is spoken becomes law, and the world sinks. This is the terrifying power at the very top of this world. The Wuya's eyes were filled with indescribable fear. His proud quasi-emperor cultivation, that ultimate attack he unleashed at the cost of burning his life, in the face of true earth realm power, didn't even make a splash. Now he finally understood why the Grand Master of Lingyao sect dared to charge in here alone. He wasn't here to die. He came on a shopping trip. I took a step forward and appeared directly before the Wuya, looking down on him from above, right in front of the Wuya, looking down at him condescendingly. Just now, you said you'd take me down with you. You sounded pretty arrogant. How about I give you another chance? Go ahead, get your rage brewing again. At this point, the Wuya didn't dare act up. He gulped hard with difficulty, desperately reined in all his killing intent, afraid I might send him off in a bad mood, and have him reunite with his unlucky son. Spare me, Senior. This junior failed to recognize true greatness, offended the distinguished elder. I'm willing to offer up the entire treasury of Zangshan Pavilion. Just please, spare this junior's miserable life. Watching him grovel and beg like that, I curled my lips, bored. How is the leader of the demonic path so spineless? Not a hint of a final boss's resolve. But then again, killing him really wouldn't be much fun. With my current Earth-level power, squashing him wouldn't even earn me a C grade. Might as well let him be of some use. With that thought, I reached out my hand. The golden lotus of deliverance hovering above Lingshao's sect crossed 10 million miles of void space and instantly appeared in my palm. Looking at this golden lotus radiating peaceful Buddhist light, the Wuya's entire body began to tremble. He had witnessed with his own eyes how his 18 elder saints had been brainwashed into a team of wooden fish monks by this thing. How his subordinates were brainwashed into a legion of chanting monks. Didn't you want to live? I'll show unparalleled mercy today and give you a chance. I looked at him with a cheerful smile and placed the golden lotus upside down on his head. With a blinding golden light and a shrill scream, the last quasi-emperor of Zangshan Pavilion, the notorious overlord of the demonic path, fell from grace and was replaced by a compassionate-looking old monk in a tattered robe. Amitabha. My Dharma name is Kong Kong. Thank you, Buddha Sovereign, for enlightening me. Now my heart is clear, and my true nature is awakened. All my sins are washed away. Looking at Master Kong Kong in front of me, palms pressed in prayer, so devout and sincere, I nodded with satisfaction. Not bad, not bad. From now on, you'll be in charge of sweeping Lingshao sect's grounds. A quasi-emperor reduced to a janitor monk. That's a sight never seen before in all of North Wasteland. With the biggest trouble resolved, I turned my gaze to the vast headquarters of Zangshan Pavilion. This place holds the accumulated foundation of the demonic path for tens of thousands of years. I turned my gaze to the massive headquarters of Hidden Heaven Pavilion. This place contains the demonic path's foundation built up over tens of thousands of years. Mountains of heavenly treasures, cultivation techniques, and manuals. If I just left them here, it would be a tremendous waste. I stretched out my hands. The Earth's origin power surged madly and formed two giant invisible hands blocking out the sun that reached deep into the earth veins beneath Zangshan Pavilion. With a mighty shout from me, the floating island covering 10,000 miles around, along with the spiritual veins below, was uprooted by me. Like a giant star, I held it up single-handedly, suspending it in midair. Then I tore through the void,
taking this super grand prize.
Strutting leisurely on my way home. When the tens of thousands of new disciples at Lingshao's sect saw the sky above, suddenly blocked out by a shadow as vast as the heavens, they all turned pale with shock, thinking Zangshan Pavilion's main army was invading. Su Qing'an grasped her sword tightly, ready to lead everyone in a final desperate fight. But when they saw clearly who was dragging that floating island, everyone's jaw dropped to the ground. The Grandmaster is the Infinity Sword Emperor. The Grandmaster is back. Oh my god. He actually brought back the entire headquarters of Zangshan Pavilion. How could any human possibly do this? It's the Infinity Sword Emperor. The Grandmaster is back. Oh my god. He actually brought back the entire headquarters of Zangshan Pavilion. Is this really something a human could do? Under countless adoring, almost fainting gazes, I placed the floating island of Zangshan Pavilion firmly on the mountain behind Lingshao's sect, and reforged it with the power of earth laws. Once a dark and terrifying demonic sanctuary, was instantly transformed into an immortal paradise. After doing all that, I dusted off my hands and gracefully landed in the plaza. Su Qing'an led tens of thousands of disciples to kneel in a wave, with an earth-shaking cry to greet the Grandmaster, ready to rise up to the heavens. I smiled and told them to get up, then called Master Kong Kong to my side. Let me introduce someone. This is Master Kong Kong. He used to be the Wuya. Now he's head of our Lingshao sect cleaning crew. And those 18 masters behind him will be in charge of pioneering farming and infrastructure from now on. At the mention of the Wuya, Su Xing'an and those former rogues below, all gasped in shock. That's the legendary, cold-blooded killer of the demonic path. Supreme leader of the demonic path. Now he's shaved his head and is holding a shabby broom, chanting Amitabha with a grin. The scene was more shocking than seeing a ghost. But shock was soon replaced by wild joy. Even the leader of the demonic path has been tamed by Grandmaster to be the janitor monk. So who in this world would dare mess with them now? In the days that followed at Lingshao sect, unprecedented peace and prosperity flourished. With me, the unblemished emperor, guarding the sect, and countless resources and spirit veins supporting us. Our growth was rocket fast. I didn't rush off to seek out another fatal challenge, because I know how the system scores. Strength and self-destruction alone aren't enough. There must be enough emotional bonds and grand backstory build-up. Only then can you get the highest score when you die. So I decided to finally relax and enjoy an Earth-level retirement. Every morning, I bring out a recliner and sit in the sect's orchard behind the mountain, watching a group of former demonic path overlords. The sage of the demonic path is now shirtless. He is toiling away in the fields, planting spiritual herbs. Master Kong Kong is even more diligent. He wields his broom with such vigor, it seems to stir up the wind. He manages to sweep every single flagstone in the Lingshao pavilion, spotless and free of dust. So I wouldn't stand out too much. I used a secret technique to completely conceal my earth aura. From an outsider's perspective, I am just an ordinary old man with no cultivation. Every day, aside from drinking tea and walking birds, I simply guide the disciples in their cultivation. Su King and this girl really does have great talent. Her thoughts are pure, and she shows me deep respect. She personally cooks spiritual cuisine for me every day. Although her cooking skills fluctuate, I still eat with great relish. Ancestor, how do you think I'm doing with this Lingshao sword intent move? One evening, Su Qing'an demonstrated a sword technique for me in the courtyard. The sword gleamed and flashed, and there was a faint sound of wind and thunder. Among the younger generation, she truly stands out. But I merely yawned, and lazily said she was relying too much on fancy moves. A sword is a tool for killing, not for performing. It isn't meant for theatrics. Watch closely. I casually picked a blade of foxtail grass from beside me, didn't even channel any spiritual power, just simply thrust it forward. In an instant, a pure and ultimate sword intent surged upward. It split a fiery cloud thousands of miles wide in the sky, right down the middle. Su Qing'an was stunned. Her treasured sword fell from her hand with a clang. Her eyes were full of shock and sudden understanding. Is this the realm of the limitless sword emperor? Not quite enlightenment. Anything grass, wood, bamboo, or stone can become a sword. I tossed the foxtail grass into my mouth, bit down and patted her shoulder. Take your time figuring it out. Girl, cultivation isn't just about power. It's about the mind. Aside from teaching Su Qing'an, I often stroll around the outer sect. Those newly joined wandering cultivators regard me almost like their lifeline. Whenever they see me, they become so excited they can't even speak properly. I've discovered that these lower-level cultivators ask for very little. As long as you provide them with a stable environment to cultivate and a hot bowl of spiritual rice, they are willing to give their lives for you. One day, a newly joined rookie a chubby new disciple, lost control while practicing and suffered a key deviation. About to explode and die, I happened to pass by and casually tapped his forehead, using a trace of earth essence to smooth out his rampaging spiritual energy. After waking up, the chubby disciple fell to his knees in front of me with a thud, crying snot and tears. He swore that, even if it meant cleaning latrines, he would repay the ancestor for saving his life. Looking at his silly, adorable face, I couldn't help but scold him. Get lost. But an unexpected warmth rose in my heart. In the past, I only saw this place as a respawn point for leveling up, treated these disciples as mere background for my heroic sacrifice. But as days passed, I found myself truly blending into this world. I've become the head of this family. That night, Lingxiao Pavilion held a grand harvest festival. There was a huge crop in the spiritual fields out back. The spiritual rice grown by those demonic monks was plump and full, overflowing with spiritual energy. A massive bonfire was lit in the square. Tens of thousands of disciples gathered together, eating meat heartily and drinking wine in big gulps. The atmosphere was fiery and intense. Drinking wine in big gulps, the atmosphere reached its peak. Master Kong Kong and 18 elders even performed a group Shaolin staff routine for everyone, drawing loud applause. Su Qing'an brought a cup of 100 flowers brew to me, her eyes slightly red as she toasted me. Ancestor, if not for you, Lingxiao Pavilion would have been long gone, and we could never have had these good days. Qing'an, on behalf of all disciples, toasts you. May the ancestors' divine life be everlasting. Looking at those faces filled with happy smiles below, I took the wine glass and finished it in one gulp. But inwardly, I couldn't help sighing. All good things must come to an end. This rare peace was destined to be shattered. Sure enough, just as the festival reached its peak, suddenly a strange event occurred. The star-filled night sky split open with a giant crack. A terrifying pressure above all living beings poured down from the fissure. This pressure didn't come from any demonic cultivator, nor any beast, but carried an aura of superiority, untainted by the mortal world. All the reveling disciples were crushed to the ground by this aura. Those disciples were all pinned flat by the oppressive aura. Even the saint-level monks kneeled one by one, spitting blood. The whole world trembled, as if welcoming the descent of a higher dimensional entity. From the crack, a glorious celestial gate slowly appeared. 9 purebred true dragons pulled a 7-colored divine chariot out of the gate. On the chariot stood 3 immortals, robes billowing. They looked down at Lingxiao Pavilion with cold, disdainful eyes, as if gazing at a bunch of insignificant ants. Found you. One of the leading celestial envoys spoke blandly, his voice booming like thunder, exploding in everyone's soul. Lower world ants? How dare you steal heavenly fate without permission, break through the earth realm, and violate the laws of the upper world? By decree of the sovereign king, I am here to strip you of your foundation, banish you to the netherworld, never to be reborn. Hearing this, I instantly understood. Turns out in this world, mortals are not allowed to reach the earth realm. Whenever someone breaks through to earth essence, they threaten the upper world's interests, triggering these so-called celestial reapers. No wonder the northern wilderness. These so-called celestial reapers. No wonder. The northern wilderness hasn't produced an earth-level cultivator in hundreds of thousands of years. Turns out they've all been harvested by these guys like wheat. Looking at those 3 arrogant celestial envoys, I spat out the foxtail grass from my mouth and slowly stood up. Originally, I was worried. I couldn't find rivals to challenge me in the human realm. Never expected you'd deliver yourselves right to my door. So what if you're from the celestial world? What I hate most in my life is people acting superior in front of me. But before I could act, Su Qing'an somehow summoned the strength and stood up shaky but resisting the soul-crushing pressure. She wobbled to her feet, standing before me, her sword pointed directly at the celestial envoys in midair. Even though her bones were cracking, even though blood kept spilling from her lips, her eyes remained determined. You are not allowed to harm the ancestor. The ancestor broke through to protect us. If you want to kill him, you have to step over my corpse first. Inspired by Su Qing'an, the tens of thousands of disciples crushed to the ground in the plaza began gritting their teeth one by one, helping each other up. Their cultivation is low. Clench your teeth. They helped each other up. Their cultivation is weak. In the face of this immortal pressure, they don't even qualify to lift their heads. But at this moment, not a single one stepped back. My life was given to me by the patriarch. I'm taking on these bastards. Worst comes to worst, I'll be a hero again in 8 years. Protect the patriarch. Lingxiao will never fall. Raging shouts filled with blood and energy gathered into a heaven-defying torrent. They actually forced the immortal pressure back. Looking at these pitifully weak backs standing in front of me, fighting to their deaths, my eyes suddenly turned sour. These foolish kids, facing such an overwhelming enemy, instead of running, they insist on proving themselves here. But what I feel most is an unprecedented sense of exhilaration and pride. These are the soldiers I personally trained. This is the backbone of Lingxiao Pavilion. The envoys from the upper realm looked at these defiant ants. Their eyes flashed with a cruel sneer. Ignorant fools. Since you want to die with him, I'll grant you your wish. The immortal envoy raised his hand. A ball formed in his palm, an immortal thunder containing the law of destruction. He tossed it downward carelessly. If this divine thunder lands, not just these tens of thousands of disciples, even all of Beihuan will be blasted into nothingness. At this hair-trigger moment, I stepped forward, instantly past Su Qing'an, and stood at the very forefront of everyone. I didn't use any magical treasure, nor cast any earth-shattering supernatural powers. I simply reached out with one finger and touched the divine thunder. There was a gentle feft sound, and that immortal thunder capable of destroying a whole region actually burst like a soap bubble, popped by my fingertip. It turned into pure spiritual rain falling all around, nourishing the wounded disciples. The three immortal envoys were stunned. They never expected a newly advanced, lower realm bumpkin could dispel the immortal law so casually. I raised my head, glaring at them coldly. The earth aura that was suppressed to the limit erupted completely without reservation at this moment. There were no cosmic anomalies, no wailing ghosts, only a presence above all things, above all creation, under the buff of only I reign supreme. Which and from the lower realm gave you the courage to bark wildly on this land? I walked in midair. With each step, my aura climbed higher. The space around me cracked beneath my feet. The three envoys finally panicked. They sensed the threat of death. This is not just ordinary earth. This aura, this oppression, is even more terrifying than their exalted immortal king. Even more terrifying. That was the only thought left in their minds. They desperately summoned 9 true dragons, trying to retreat into the immortal gate. But in front of an emperor without flaw, space was already completely sealed. I reached out my right hand and clenched it forcefully. Those 9 exalted true dragons instantly exploded into blood. Even the 7-colored divine chariot turned to dust. The 3 envoys plummeted like kites with broken strings, falling from midair, crashing onto the Lingxiao Pavilion Plaza, smashed up dizzy and confused. I slowly landed in front of them, looking at their terrified eyes, utterly terrified eyes. A cruel smile curled on my lips. You just said you'd strip away my foundation. Here I stand. Let's see if you can do it. Today I'm going to skin all 3 of you. The envoys, scared, kowtowed repeatedly. Long gone was any of that immortal arrogance from earlier. Spare us, Emperor. We were only following orders. Please have mercy, Emperor. Let us return to the immortal realm. If I dared hurt even a single hair of yours, I'd be cursed by the heavens. I sneered, stamping my foot on the lead envoy's head. Go back and tell your so-called immortal king to clean his neck and wait for me. Someday I'll invade the immortal realm and twist his head off to kick around. But I know, this is just tough talk. Since the immortal realm has an immortal king, that means beings beyond the earth exist above him, like dust immortals. Although I'm invincible in this world now, if I really face the entire immortal realm, I'm probably just a slightly better cannon fodder. More importantly, these 3 envoys may be useless, but they carry the immortal realm's coordinate beacon. If they die at this beacon, if they die here, the immortal realm will immediately send down an army. Then, the disciples of Lingxiao Pavilion would surely perish. So in order to completely protect the sect, and to have a most brilliant final curtain for myself, a crazy plan surfaced in my mind. I'm going to use my Earth life to forcibly seal this immortal gate connecting to the immortal realm. completely cut off the exploitation from the upper realm. I turned around and glanced deeply at Su Qing'an and those disciples with faces full of adoration. Forcing the earth's essence out of my body, it became a dazzling golden orb. This orb contained all my cultivation and insights. I gently pushed it towards Su Qing'an, letting it merge into his body. Girl, Lingxiao Pavilion is yours from now on. Don't let me down. Su Qing'an felt the vast power inside and seemed to realize something. Her tears broke uncontrollably. She rushed madly to grab my sleeve. Patriarch, don't! Qing'an doesn't want cultivation. Qing'an just wants Patriarch to live. But she caught nothing. Even as I'm alive, she caught nothing. My body is starting to turn ethereal. It's a sign of my earth body burning. I ignored the three trembling envoys and charged straight toward the colossal, immortal gate amid the despairing cries of the disciples. I arrived before the immortal gate, spread my arms wide, and without hesitation detonated my flawless earth body. At this moment, there was no earth-shattering impact, no thunderous explosion, only a supreme tribute to a hero's sacrifice. The earth's self-detonation became an insurmountable wall of law, sealing the crack leading to the immortal realm bit by bit. The three envoys were wiped out by this power. Not even a scrap remained. In the final moment before my consciousness faded, I looked at those disciples kneeling below, crying uncontrollably, looked at the ancient mountain range gradually returning to peace, and smiled with relief. This life was pretty satisfying. I didn't waste all those days as their patriarch. As the immortal gate was fully sealed, golden rain began pouring from the sky. A golden rain fell from the sky, an imagery of heaven and earth mourning together after the fall of the great emperor, and also my final gift to this world. The disciples bathing in the rain saw their cultivation levels skyrocket crazily. Su Qing'an even broke directly through to the Saint Realm. However, the entire Lingxiao Pavilion was immersed in deathly silent grief. No one, due to the improvement in their cultivation, felt happy. They silently wiped away their tears, and in front of the Forbiddance area in the back mountain, erected another brand new blank stele. They knew that, although the patriarch was gone, his spirit would guard this land forever. Meanwhile, on the other side, in that familiar yet mysterious pitch-black space, the system's notification sounds flashed frantically with an unprecedented red light. Detected that the host has completed the ultimate sacrifice, successfully resisted the dimensional strike from the immortal realm, saved all living beings, and sealed the passage to the immortal realm. Calculating the death rating for this event, calculation complete. Final rating, SSS. Plus the supreme mythic level reward is being Sud, remolding the host's divine soul. Advancing and surpassing. Sud, remolding the host's divine soul. Advancing and surpassing the great emperor, and achieving the red dust immortal realm. Feeling that surge of terrifying power in my body, more than 100 times stronger than before. I stretched comfortably. This is a true cheat-like life. What is a great emperor? A red dust immortal is the true truth of this universe. I couldn't wait to push open that heavy stone door, ready to make a sparkling entrance once again, and accept the worship of my disciples and grand disciples. But when I took a step out of the Forbiddance area, the sight before me made me freeze instantly. There was no familiar spirit herb garden, no Master Kong Kong sweeping the floor, and no Su Qing'an kneeling on the ground sniveling. What entered my eyes was a vast and boundless starry sky, and what I was stepping on wasn't the back mountain of Lingxiao Pavilion at all. I stood frozen in place, rubbed my eyes, and made sure I wasn't seeing things. There was no familiar spiritual energy around, no flowers, grass, or trees, only endless stars slowly revolving. I looked down at my hands. That kind of power that could crush a galaxy with a casual gesture was definitely that of a red dust immortal, no doubt about it. But the problem was, where is my home? Where is my huge Lingxiao Pavilion? Where is the home I worked so hard to build? Where is my huge Lingxiao Pavilion? The foundation I worked so hard to save up, and those who spent all day finding ways to flatter me, my cute disciples. And grand disciples, where did they go? Just when my head was full of question marks, above my head, a violent spatial fluctuation suddenly came. A figure wearing a tattered Taoist robe, a white-bearded old man holding a whisk, tumbled out of the void. He fell flat on his back, crying out, "Ouch, ouch!" After seeing me, the old man was so scared that his beard curled up. He scrambled backward, crawling and rolling. Why you? How did a pervert like you get into the heavenly Tao origin space? I narrowed my eyes and sized up this old man. Although he looked extremely wretched, the aura he exuded matched this heaven and earth perfectly, as if he were the incarnation of this starry sky. I crossed my arms, looking down at him from above. What kind of thing are you, daring to call this seat a pervert? The old man stood up tremblingly, dusted off his Taoist robe, and curled his lips aggrievedly. I am the incarnation of the heavenly Tao's will of this northern wasteland. You made such a huge commotion down there just now, even blowing up the passage to the immortal realm. Do you know how much effort it took me just to patch up this damn hole in the sky? But look at you. Not only did you not die, you actually broke through to the red dust immortal level. The laws of heaven and earth in this lower realm simply cannot withstand your massive energy. If you respawn directly in Lingxiao Pavilion, just you taking a single breath would crush a radius of 100,000 miles into flat ground. So I had no choice but to forcefully transfer your respawn point to this origin space. Here, upon hearing this, it suddenly dawned on me. So my cultivation was too high, causing the server to be unable to hold a max-level whale like me. I stroked my chin, feeling a bit troubled. Then what should I do? I can't possibly stay in this godforsaken starry sky forever and become a lonely old man, right? I'm still waiting to go back and eat the braised spirit fish made by my little girl Kingan. The heavenly Tao old man rolled his eyes. How can you have no ambition at all? You've already become a red dust immortal, yet you're still thinking about a mortal realm's braised fish. However, if you really want to go back, it's not like there isn't a way. As long as you leave your red dust immortal origin power here, to suppress the crack in the immortal realm passage, and then separate a wisp of your divine soul to remold a mortal body, you can return to Lingxiao Pavilion completely unnoticed. Moreover, this way, if there are immortal realm, if anyone from the immortal realm dares to sneak down to the lower realm again, your origin power will instantly detect them, and I can also benefit a bit from it. My eyes lit up. That's a good idea. Not only can I go back to experience the daily retired life of a pensioner, but I can also protect the sect in secret. It's simply killing two birds with one stone. Acting on the thought, I immediately sat cross-legged, taking the vast, ocean-like red dust immortal origin power in my body, and stripping away 99% of it, turning it into a massive golden avatar sitting cross-legged with its eyes closed, suppressing the deepest part of this starry sky. Then I drew out a wisp of my divine soul, and casually molded an ordinary mortal body with no cultivation at all. In order not to be recognized by acquaintances, I deliberately adjusted my appearance to look younger, looking like a 16 or 17-year-old, fair-skinned, red-lipped young master of an immortal family. The heavenly Tao old man looked at my pretend-to-be-young appearance and couldn't help but curl his lips continuously. You old monster, you really have sick tastes. I couldn't be bothered with him. I kicked open a void crack and leaped forward, returning once again to the northern wasteland that I had been longing for. When my feet stepped onto the solid ground again, I took a deep breath of the earthy-scented, spiritual energy and couldn't help but let out a comfortable sigh of relief. This is life. At this time, since I blew myself up to seal the immortal gate, exactly 3 years had passed. Following the mountain path, I leisurely arrived in front of the mountain gate of Lingxiao Pavilion. Good heavens, the changes were too great. The originally dilapidated mountain gate had now been built into a white jade archway over 100 zhang tall. On the archway, carved with bold and flowing strokes, were the four large characters Lingxiao Holy Land. The disciples guarding the gate were entirely at the Purple Mansion realm. In the past, this cultivation level would have been enough to be an elder, but now they could only guard the gate. I blended into a group of those who came to take the outer disciple assessment, hiding among the rogue cultivators, and slowly walked inside along with the crowd. Because this body of mine had no cultivation, when testing my aptitude, only a dim white light shone. The deacon in charge of the assessment frowned, originally wanting to eliminate me directly, but I secretly slipped out of my sleeve and handed over a top-grade spirit stone. That deacon instantly beamed with joy, and with a wave of his large brush, assigned me to the servant peak, making me a glorious floor-sweeping servant of Lingxiao Pavilion. On the very first day I was assigned to the servant peak, I ran into an acquaintance. I just ran into someone I know. I saw an old monk with a shaved head. He was holding a broom even taller than himself, sweeping leaves intensely in the plaza. He was sweeping with great focus. Every leaf was neatly gathered by him. That monk wasn't just anyone.
He was the former master of Burial Heaven Pavilion, once feared by the demonic sects.
Now known as Master Kong Kong. I carried a small broom and walked over, smiling as I greeted him. The old monk was sweeping. Master Kong Kong paused his movement, put his palms together, smiled at me kindly. Amitabha. Young one, you're new here, aren't you? Sweeping the floor is also sweeping the heart. These fallen leaves are like worldly troubles. Sweeping them away is cleansing greed, anger, and ignorance from the heart. Looking at his appearance as an enlightened monk, I almost couldn't hold back my laughter. Who would have thought? 3 years ago, this guy was yelling about flattening Lingxiao Pavilion. The brainwashing effect of the Due Golden Lotus is truly the best in the cultivation world. Just as we were chatting, a commotion suddenly arose in the distance. Several young disciples in inner sect uniforms surrounded a brocade-clad youth with an arrogant face. Walking over. That young man looked down on everyone. Walking over. That young man looked down on everyone. Even his walk seemed full of swagger. I overheard some menial disciples whispering nearby. That youth's name is Zhao Tianyang, the newest top genius of the inner sect. He possesses the extremely rare Thunderflame spiritual root. Even sect master Su Qing'an holds high hopes for him. Zhao Tianyang walked to the middle of the plaza, glanced disdainfully at the leaves all over the ground, and kicked Master Kong Kong's neatly swept leaf pile, scattering it everywhere. Old bald monk, are you blind? Didn't you see I'm about to practice sword here and need this space? Master Kong Kong wasn't bothered. He quietly stepped aside, bent down to start cleaning again. The inner sect disciples saw this, and began laughing even more recklessly. I leaned against a big tree, touching my chin as I watched, shaking my head inwardly. Lingxiao Pavilion grew too fast. The new disciples are mixed quality. Somehow idiots with no idea of their limits slipped in. Looks like King On's life these 3 years hasn't been easy. Managing such a huge holy land is tough for her. Zhao Channing drew his sword from his waist, about to show off. I casually kicked a small stone from the ground. The stone flew through the air. A small stone on the ground. The stone traced a bizarre arc mitre, not off even by a hair, hitting Zhao Tianyang's wrist acupoint exactly. He shouted in pain, his sword clattering to the ground. His whole body lost balance, and he fell flat on his face. The crowd fell instantly silent. Zhao Tianyang became furious out of embarrassment. Got up and looked around. Who dares to sneak attack me? Show yourself. I pretended nothing had happened, kept my head down and continued sweeping. But Master Kong Kong glanced at me as if noticing something. A trace of doubt flickered in his cloudy old eyes. He seemed to sense something, but wasn't sure. This minor scene ended with Zhao Tianyang leaving in disgrace. Night fell. I rubbed my growling belly and wandered into Lingxiao Pavilion's kitchen. As a former old clan leader, I've always known this place's layout, even better than my own palm. I climbed through the window effortlessly, ready to grab 2 roast chickens for a snack. But just as I landed, I heard suppressed sobbing from the darkness. I squinted in the moonlight for a better look, saw someone in a simple long skirt. Moonlight made me look closely. It was a woman in a plain dress, curled up in the corner by the stove, holding half a cold steamed bun, crying uncontrollably. That familiar face, who else could it be but Su Qing'an? Now she's grown even more graceful, carrying the aura of authority. But at this moment, like a helpless little girl, my heart tightened. I hid in the shadows, saying nothing. I heard her nibbling on the stale bun, mumbling into the air, "Ancestor, you've been gone for 3 years now. Qing'an is so tired." Those newly joined affiliated sects are always two-faced. The old elders fight for resources, never stopping their arguments. Qing'an's cultivation is high, but she doesn't know how to manage them.
If only you were still here.
Just a temper from you, they'd be too scared to even breathe. You said you became spiritual rain in the sky, but Qing'an watches the stars every night and never sees your shadow anymore. Hearing her aggrieved mumbling, my eyes couldn't help but feel warm. This girl puts on an act as a holy master's strength in front of others, but secretly hides in the kitchen crying while eating cold buns. Makes me feel sorry and helpless. Nibbling cold buns, crying really makes me both pity and feel helpless. I quietly circulated a little weak spiritual power, took out a foxtail grass from my storage pouch, brushed my fingers lightly over the blade. That ordinary foxtail grass suddenly emitted a faint, yet incredibly pure sword aura. With a flick of my finger, the foxtail grass turned into a streak of light, landing perfectly at Su Qing'an's feet. Su Qing'an was startled by the sudden sound. She quickly looked up and scanned the surroundings warily. When her gaze fell on the foxtail grass lying on the ground, she seemed struck by lightning. She picked up the foxtail grass with trembling hands, sensing that familiar and unmistakable sword aura. Her tears poured out like broken pearls. "Ancestor, is that you? You came back to see Qing'an, didn't you?" She stumbled out of the kitchen, frantically searching in the night. But I'd already slipped away under cover of night, sneaking back to the servant quarters firewood room. Lying on the hard, wooden bed, I couldn't help but smile faintly. "Girl, there's still a long road ahead. Ancestor is watching from the shadows, watching you grow step by step. A true ruler isn't supported by others." For the next few months, my days were extremely comfortable. During the day, I swept the floor with Master Kong Kong, sometimes watered the spiritual fields on the hillside. Those former domineering demon leaders are now great at farming, especially Blood Key Ghost Mother. Her skill at ripening spiritual herbs is unmatched to people's 100-year-old ginseng. She just recites some rebirth chants, and it grows plump in half a month. Of course, I wasn't idle either. Lingshao Pavilion is spectacular on the surface, but secretly, many dangers lurk. That so-called genius, Zhao Tianyan, has been acting very suspicious lately. Several times, while sneaking out to pee at night, I caught him sneaking toward the Forbiddens area behind the mountain. I thought he was just curious and exploring, but then I noticed on him a faint trace of celestial aura. That made things interesting. Looks like when I sealed the celestial gate 3 years ago, those guys from the celestial realm still left a backup. I quietly followed Zhao Tianyan, following behind Zhao Tianying. The night perfectly concealed me, this mortal body devoid of any spiritual power. This guy kept looking around the whole way. He finally stopped in front of the boundary marker at the Forbiddens area in the back mountain. I saw him pull out an ancient bronze mirror with a faint immortal aura from his chest. As soon as the ancient mirror was taken out, the surrounding space began to ripple ever so slightly. This is clearly the mirror used in the immortal realm to locate coordinates in the lower realm. The boundary-breaking hidden spirit mirror. I hid behind a large green stone, touching my chin and sneering to myself. So 3 years ago, those 3 unlucky immortal envoys didn't all perish. They actually managed, before dying, to attach a bit of immortal soul to this genius from the lower realm. Zhao Tianyang was chanting something. his fingers constantly engraving formation patterns onto the ancient bronze mirror. He's actually trying to open up a micro root right under my nose. I could jump out now and slap him to death, but then I reconsidered. If I killed him now, it'd be like squashing an ant. Wouldn't even get much of a high score. Better to cast a long line and catch a big fish. Wait until he brings over those big shots from the immortal realm. Then I'll make my dazzling entrance. Let myself shine. Make a spectacular appearance. And conveniently check if the Lingxiao Pavilion disciple's backbone has weakened after 3 years. After making up my mind, I quietly slipped back to the servant quarters. The next morning, as usual, I held a big broom and cleaned the mountain gate with Master Kong Kong. Today, Master Kong Kong seemed a bit restless. He kept sneaking glances at me as he swept. Finally, he couldn't resist coming over. Young one, this old monk observed the stars last night and found an unusual star flickering toward the Forbiddance area in the back mountain. It seemed to carry a disaster aura not belonging to the mortal world. I looked at the old monk in surprise. No wonder he was once an almost Earth-level demon king. Even after being brainwashed into a holy monk, his sharp instincts remain. Casually brushed him off. Master, you probably didn't sleep well last night and your eyes are blurry. With the prestige of our ancestors suppressing Lingxiao Pavilion, what fool would dare come here seeking death? Master Kong Kong sighed, pressed his palms together and recited a Buddhist verse. Let's hope this old monk is just overthinking. But young one, even though you have no cultivation, I always feel there's something on you that makes one want to. Makes everyone have the urge to bow down in worship. That sense of Zen hearing this. I nearly choked on my own saliva. This old monk's intuition is just too accurate. I quickly laughed it off to dodge further questions. Dragged him off to the back mountain to watch the blood demon mother planting crops. Trying to divert attention. In the spiritual field at the back mountain, the blood demon mother, who once killed without batting an eye, was rolling up her pants, busily planting rice in the muddy ground. Nearby, several demon saints who'd been brainwashed by the golden lotus of salvation were carrying manure. The scene was so beautiful it was hard to look directly at it. Squatting on the ridge, watching them work hard, I couldn't help but sigh in my heart. This is what it truly means to lay down the butcher's knife and become a Buddha right on the spot. Just as we were watching, Sect Master Su Qing'an arrived with a group of elders to inspect the mausoleum. Su Qing'an dressed all in white, outshining even the snow, sat dignified on a jade wind boat carved from top-grade spiritual jade. Her expression was cold and majestic, nothing like the little girl from back then who ate steamed buns in the woodshed, crying with a runny nose. Yet between her brows, there was always a fatigue that wouldn't fade. When she saw us servants, she nodded slightly. When she saw us servants, she nodded slightly. As her gaze swept over my mortal body, she didn't linger. After all, I currently look like just an ordinary little sweeper. In the next few months, Lingxiao Pavilion ushered in the once-a-decade Intersect Grand Tournament. This is now the most grand event in all Northern Wasteland. Sect masters and elders from countless affiliated sects all gathered at Lingxiao Peak, hoping to see the talents of the Holy Land. The tournament was underway full blast. Zhao Qianing, who was possessed by the remnant soul of the immortal realm, unsurprisingly made it to the finals. His opponent was Ling Yan, the top disciple personally passed on by Su Qing'an. The kid is steady in temperament, his swordsmanship truly grasping the essence of Lingxiao sword intent. Both fought evenly matched on stage. Sword ki filled the arena. Thunder and flame clashed. The audience below cried out in awe. But standing among the servant disciples, I keenly sensed something was wrong. Every move Shao Tianyan made seemed like he was attacking Ling Yan, but the thunderflame spiritual power he released was secretly eroding the protecting formation beneath the stage. The main core of the Grand Array. This kid was using the tournament. The core of the Grand Defense Array, using the chaos of the grand event as cover, to forcibly open a portal to the immortal realm. Sure enough, just as they reached the climax of battle, Zhao Tianyan suddenly revealed a sinister, distorted, cold smile. His eyes instantly turned pure white and emotionless. A terrifying power far beyond his current realm erupted suddenly. Ling Yan didn't even have a chance to react, and was struck hard by that force, spitting blood wildly, falling at the edge of the stage, uncertain if alive or dead. The whole arena was in uproar. Su Qingyan suddenly stood up, her beautiful face filled with shock and rage. Xiao Tianyan, you're not using the Lingxiao Pavilion's techniques. Who are you really? On stage, Zhao Tianyang laughed maniacally at the sky. His voice had completely turned into someone else. The voice was lofty, full of endless coldness. Lower realm ants. I, this immortal lord, have lurked for 3 years, and finally fully corroded the core of your grand formation. Today is your Lingxiao Pavilion's doom. As soon as the words left his mouth, he crushed the bronze ancient mirror in his hand. A dazzling immortal light shot straight into the sky. The bronze ancient mirror. A dazzling immortal light shot straight into the sky. The once clear sky was instantly torn open into a huge black hole. An aura even more terrifying than 3 years ago, far more destructive, poured down from the void. Everyone present, whether sect elders or guests there to spectate, were all crushed to the ground by that aura. Some disciples with weaker cultivation even started bleeding from all 7 orifices. The immortal realm has descended. Despair quickly spread across Lingxiao Peak. From within the hole, a giant immortal hand covering the sky slowly reached out. Just one hand alone made the entire ancient mountain range cry out in unbearable agony. The earth shook, mountains swayed, and rocks crashed through the sky. This was a cross-realm strike from an immortal sovereign. Su Qingyan bit down hard, enduring soul-crushing pressure, and with all her might drew her sword. She didn't retreat even a single step, instead burning all her saint-level essence, transforming into a dazzling meteor, and unhesitatingly charged at the immortal hand. Lingxiao disciples, heed my order. Better to die in battle than to kneel and live, her clear voice echoed. Lingxiao disciples, listen up. We'd rather die standing than live kneeling. His crisp and resolute voice echoed through the heavens. Countless disciples of Lingxiao Pavilion had tears in their eyes. They knew the sect master was fighting a hopeless battle. But in the Lingxiao Pavilion dictionary, the word surrender simply doesn't exist. They would live and die with their sect. Amidst earth-shattering roars, countless disciples began to burn their blood essence. Wishing to follow in the sect master's footsteps, they launched desperate suicide charges. Even those rogue cultivators who were once afraid of death didn't choose to run away at this moment. Because they knew, 3 years ago the ancestor gave up his life so they could live. He didn't even care about his own life. If they backed down today, how could they face their ancestors in the afterlife with any dignity? Looking up at the sky, at that frail figure charging in like a moth to a flame, hidden among the servants, I actually felt my eyes well up a little too. Girl, you did great. You didn't embarrass Lingxiao Pavilion. And you didn't disgrace me, your ancestor. Just as Su Qingyan was about to crash into the giant celestial hand, everyone thought he was as good as dead. I let out a soft sigh and took a small step forward. A step that seemed ordinary, seemingly nothing special, but crossed the limits of space and time. In an instant, I was in front of Su Qingyan. I reached out my hand and gently wrapped her trembling waist. Su Qingyan froze. She stared blankly ahead at the young man in gray servant's clothes, with a pretty face but totally unfamiliar to her. Her mind went totally blank. Who the hell are you? What are you trying to do? Pick a peach or something? I didn't answer her. Instead, I raised my other hand, facing that sky-darkening celestial hand, and casually snapped my fingers. A crisp snap echoed loudly, strangely clear in this apocalyptic moment. But in the next second, a miracle happened. High above the heavens, in the patch of sky I had suppressed with 99% of my immortal essence, far away among the stars, a sudden burst of unrivaled golden light exploded, piercing eternity. That golden light ignored every law of heaven and earth, crossing the realms directly. In an instant, it surged into my mortal body. The servant boy who was originally powerless, in that moment, unleashed a peerless aura that made every realm in existence tremble. Invincible aura. An invincible aura. That all-powerful celestial hand. The moment it touched my aura was like ice meeting red-hot iron, disintegrated into nothingness without even a single scream. It just instantly vaporized into oblivion. A deathly silence fell over the whole place. Everyone's eyes were wide open, staring at the boy in gray in the sky like he was a monster, looking up at the gray-clad youth in the sky. Zhao Tianyang, possessed by a celestial spirit, was so terrified he stumbled backwards. He shrieked in utter disbelief. Impossible! How could there be such a terrifying existence in the lower realm? Who are you really? I slowly let go of Su Qing'an, turned around and looked down at Zhao Tianyang. A familiar mocking smirk appeared at the corner of my mouth. 3 years apart, and the dogs from the heavenly realm still love to bark so much. Hearing that familiar tone, seeing that signature cold sneer, Su Qing'an's body trembled violently, and tears poured down her face. Even though the face looked completely different, that arrogant air, as if he could use the sky as his blanket, as if nothing could shake him. There was only one person in the world like that. Who else could it be? Ancestor, that's you! Scolding the ancestor. Su Qing'an. Ancestor Su Qing'an broke down in sobs. Like a child who'd finally found their parent after being wronged. Like a child who, after suffering, finally found their family. The elders and disciples below, hearing her call out ancestor, all froze. They were utterly dumbfounded, and then erupted in thunderous cheers. Even in a new identity, even in the most ragged servant clothes, as long as he made a move, he was the one and only faith in Lingshao Pavilion. Looking at Su Qing'an now sobbing uncontrollably, I reached out and ruffled her hair. Hey, mind your manners. Call me Lin Fan, the servant. I got in as a janitor through an official exam, you know. After saying that, I shifted my gaze back to the completely terrified Zhao Tianyang, and up to the sky, at that ever-expanding heavenly black hole. In that brief moment, I borrowed my body's power. I'd already sensed behind that black hole, not just a celestial lord, but an entire army of thousands from the heavenly realm lying in wait. Looks like they want to take advantage of the sex peril and launch a full-scale world annihilation war. To wipe out Northern Wasteland as an unstable factor once and for all. To me, that's the best news ever. I was just troubled by how fragile this mortal body is, feeling how weak this mortal shell is, and how I couldn't recklessly rack up any heroics. Now you're lining up to be the cannon fodder. I took a deep breath, compressing that borrowed strand of mortal-immortal essence entirely into my dantian. Then I spread my arms wide and shouted up at the black hole in the sky, hurling the wildest taunt. All you cowardly turtles from the heavenly realm, if you've got the guts, come down here. Your grandpa is standing right here. I'll show you what it means for a mortal's body to stand shoulder to shoulder with the gods. A furious roar echoed from behind the black hole. Arrogant lower world ant. This celestial lord will erase even your soul today. As that roar faded, hundreds, thousands of dazzling beams of celestial light poured down from the black hole like a storm. Every beam of celestial light represented a mighty celestial general. And at the lead were 3 covered head to toe in laws of the Tao, half-step celestial kings. With a lineup like that, not to mention one, Northern Wasteland, even 10 lower realms put together wouldn't stand a chance. The disciples of Lingshao Pavilion, whose hope just ignited, once again felt a soul-crushing despair. The gap was just too great. Faced with despair, the gap was truly insurmountable. No amount of hot-blooded courage could make up for it. But I was so excited I could barely contain myself. Yes, this is the feeling. That suffocating pressure. That's it. Only by surviving in these kinds of certain death situations can I rack up an ultimate, unprecedented God-level score. I turned to the still stunned Master Kong Kong. Master, take everyone to the Forbiddance area in the back mountain. Activate the ultimate defense of the Golden Lotus of Salvation. Master Kong Kong gave me a deep look, palms pressed together, and bowed deeply. This humble monk will obey the Buddha's decree. He then waved his huge broom, swept up a soft Buddhist light, and gathered the tens of thousands in the plaza, including the severely injured Ling Yan, swiftly retreating to the back mountain. Su Qing'an clung tightly to my sleeve, refusing to leave. If I don't go, 3 years ago you abandoned us, and went off to die alone. Today, even if it means being shattered to pieces, I want to die by your side. Seeing her red eyes and determined expression, my heart softened. But this is the key moment for me to rack up my points. Taking along a burden? But this is my key moment to rack up points. How can I drag along a burden at a time like this? Without hesitation, I hit her with a swift chop. It landed right on her snow-white neck. Su Qing'an's eyes rolled back. She fainted instantly. I casually tossed her to Master Kong Kong. Old monk, take care of this girl. If she loses even a single hair, I'll come back and flatten all those monk scars on your head. Every single one. With the rear settled, I could finally go all out. At that moment, celestial generals filled the sky, completely surrounding Lingshao Peak. 3 half-step celestial kings looked down at me from above, their eyes full of contempt. So you're that ant who killed the envoy from the celestial realm, and still dare to try blocking the advance of the celestial army. I said nothing. One immediately activated the source in my Danshin, that extremely compressed red dust immortal essence. This mortal body can't withstand such terrifying power at all. My skin split open with countless bloody gashes in an instant. I looked like a man completely covered in blood. But in this extreme agony, I burst out into wild, unrestrained laughter. The celestial realm is nothing. Today I'm going to show you all. Even a laborer from Lingshao Pavilion is not to be messed with. I'm going to make you understand. Even a laborer from Lingshao Pavilion is someone you can't afford to offend. Before I finished speaking, my whole body turned into a blazing blood-red streak of light. I charged right into the formation of celestial generals. No flashy spells, no earth-shaking treasures. I relied solely on direct, pure physical collision. A series of deafening explosions erupted in midair. I was just like a humanoid nuke. Wherever I passed, those proud celestial generals looked as fragile as paper, their bones shattering and muscles tearing. Blood and flesh flying everywhere. The 3 half-step celestial kings were shocked and furious. They couldn't understand how a seemingly ordinary mortal body could unleash such terrifying power of destruction and annihilation. The great slaughtering immortals and demons array. All 3 half-step celestial kings shouted in unison. Over 1,000 surviving celestial generals swiftly moved into position, weaving a net in the sky made from immortal laws. A trap forged by the rules of the celestial Tao. I was tightly trapped within the array. Countless sword energies, powerful enough to destroy stars, rained down on me like a furious storm. Even with red dust immortal essence protecting my body, the attacks kept coming. Even with red dust immortal protection, this mortal body was finally pushed to the brink of collapse. My left arm broke, my chest caved in. Half my body was sliced into a gory mess, a mass of blood and flesh. But I didn't even twitch my brow. Instead, I laughed even more crazily. Nice, just like that. Put more force into it. Forgot to eat, huh? My twisted laughter made every celestial powerhouse outside the formation feel chills run down their spine. They've cultivated for thousands of years, have met all sorts of ruthless people, but they've never seen someone dismembered, still laughing like a madman. The forbidden grounds behind the mountain. Su Qing'an was already awake. He watched, through the shielding lotus, as the blood-soaked figure kept charging madly alone through the sky. His heart ached so much he could hardly breathe. Why? Why is it always the ancestor carrying everything alone? Tens of thousands of Lingshao Pavilion disciples were sobbing uncontrollably, many even biting their lips until blood ran. That feeling of watching their protector go to die, a sense of helplessness, like a dull knife cutting into their flesh. Just then, I felt this body's life force had been completely severed, running solely on my last breath. And the system? The familiar notification sound finally rang in my mind. Host detected in extreme near-death state. Evaluating current death performance. Current scene is extremely heroic. Hatred value has maxed out. Estimated rating will break all historical records. Hearing that heavenly notification sound, I sighed in satisfaction. Point farming task, perfectly completed. Time to send these celestial realm trash on their way. I stopped my futile slaughter and floated in the center of the great slaughtering array. With my one remaining eye, I stared at the 3 half-step celestial kings. Do you really think you've won? Today I'm giving you a lesson in art, and art is explosion. With my final angry roar, I lit the last trace of red dust immortal essence in my dantian without hesitation. That single strand of red dust immortal essence. Self-destruction of the mortal body stacked with the eruption of red dust immortal source created some kind of strange chemical reaction. There was no blinding light, nor any earth-shaking explosion. I only saw a faint gray ripple expanding outward from me. It spread in all directions. That gray ripple seemed slow, but actually it crossed space and time. Any celestial general touched by the ripple couldn't even show any expression of fear. They just crumbled like a weathered sand sculpture, flaking away bit by bit until they faded to dust. The 3 half-step celestial kings were utterly terrified, desperately trying to tear open the void and escape back to the celestial realm. But the gray ripple sealed the whole world, erasing them along with the massive celestial realm black hole, clean and complete, as if they had never existed in this world at all. With the enemy totally defeated, my battered mortal body finally dissolved into countless light particles, drifting down slowly onto Lingshao Peak. A tragic rain of blood began to fall from the sky. It was heaven's will, mourning the fall of a mortal supreme. Wails of heart-wrenching sorrow burst out in the Forbidden's grounds. Su Qing'an knelt on the ground, his hands clawed deep into the earth, fingernails broken, blood pouring out. Fingernails shattered, blood streaming. He hated his own weakness, hated himself, that he couldn't even qualify to stand beside the ancestor in battle. And in that unseen place, the source of heavenly Tao, amidst the stars, my true self was comfortably lying on a cloud, listening to the system's relentless settlement tone. Settlement complete. Final rating, Genesis level reward. Host has fused with the will of heaven. Grand world shuttling privileges now unlocked. Just when I was about to receive my reward with delight, Old Man Heaven suddenly rushed up to me, rolling and tumbling, his face pale as paper. Hey, pervert, something's terribly wrong. A big mess just happened. I frowned. What's wrong, old man? I just wiped out all the celestial realm intruders for you. And you're still not happy? Old Man Heaven stamped his foot anxiously. That explosion you did was way too powerful. It did blow away the celestial realm, folks, but it also tore open a crack in the barrier connecting the myriad worlds. Now it's not just the celestial realm, but even the 9 nether demon domain, the chaos gods, and some unnameable ancient entities are all eyeing our north through the crack. Hearing that, I wasn't scared at all. Not only did I not feel afraid, I actually slapped my thigh in excitement, leaped up from the cloud I was sitting on, my eyes shining with an unprecedented frenzy. Is there really such a great opportunity? I'd been worrying about running out of things to do in this world, but now this is interesting. All the opportunities of the vast universe are being handed right to me. Old Man Heavenly Tao looked at my excited expression, completely despairing as he covered his face. He had a feeling that all the worlds of the heavens were about to face an unprecedented catastrophe because of this madman who loves to self-destruct. I rubbed my hands together, looking down at Ling Zhao, who was mourning me, a signature smirk of mockery curling up at my lips again. I sneered, "Stop crying, my foolish disciples and grand disciples. Your old ancestor is about to entertain guests again. This time, If I don't blow up the heavens and all the worlds, I'm not worthy of my name. As Lin Fan's words fell, the sealed stone door in the Forbidden's area behind the mountain, under Su Qing'an's shocked gaze, slowly opened once again, accompanied by a wild laugh that shattered the stars. The ultimate nightmare of Lingzhou Pavilion began with that wild, star-shattering laughter. The Forbidden's area behind the mountain, and the wild, star-shattering laughter, the heavy and ancient stone door in the Forbidden's area, while countless shocked eyes watched, slowly opened once again. A tall, slender figure stepped out from the shadows. But this time, I didn't use any old, decrepit disguise, but instead restored my original handsome, youthful appearance. Dressed in white, spotless, my long hair casually draped over my back. Though there was no sign of spiritual power around me, that kind of absolute confidence, as if I could trample the whole universe under my feet, made everyone present feel suffocated. Su Qing'an was still kneeling there in a daze, the tear tracks at the corner of his eyes still not dry. He looked at the familiar yet unfamiliar young man in white, and it was as if 1,000 bolts of thunder exploded in his mind all at once. That outrageously arrogant aura, that pose as if, even if the sky fell, he'd still put on airs first. Aside from their self-destruct loving old ancestor, there's simply no one else in this world like him. But wait, didn't old ancestor just turn into countless points of light? Even heaven itself sent a bloody downpour. To see him off, how come? To see him off. It's barely been the time it takes for one incense stick to burn, and the old man comes strolling out like nothing happened. Just swaggering out like that. Could it be that the realm above earth, even total body and soul destruction, is as easy as eating and drinking? Looking at all the disciples below, whose jaws practically dropped to the floor, I casually smoothed back my hair, a lazy smile at the corner of my mouth. Why are you all stunned? Does your old ancestor really have to go down and wipe away your tears for you? Hearing that teasing tone familiar to the core, the entire Lingshao peak fell silent as death. Then came a cheer 100 times more terrifying than the immortal realm descending. The old ancestor isn't dead. The old ancestor is really alive again. Tens of thousands of disciples hugged each other and cried with joy, some even rolling on the ground in excitement. With the most primitive of ways, they let out their joy and shock. Master Kong Kong joined his palms together, old and cloudy eyes full of tears, shouting Buddha is merciful. The 18 sainted elders behind him knelt and kowtowed in perfect unison. Even the scars on their foreheads, from their monastic vows, were knocked bright red. The scars on their foreheads turned a deep red from bowing. Su Qing'an suddenly sprang to his feet, scrambling up the stone steps, and wrapped his arms tightly around my waist, his tears like a broken dam, soaking the front of my robe. Old ancestor, you scared Qing'an to death. Qing'an thought he'd never see you again in this life. If you ever dare leave me to die alone again, Qing'an will follow you. Watching this girl cry to the point she couldn't catch her breath, the softest part of my heart, was deeply moved. I reached out and gently patted her back, my voice unusually gentle. Silly girl, your old ancestor is indestructible. A few immortal realm punks aren't nearly enough to kill me. That was just a trick to fool them. Otherwise, how else could I lure out the rats hiding behind them? Hearing my understated explanation, the elders and disciples below were all in total awe. So that earth-shattering self-detonation earlier was just to draw out snakes from their holes. Such masterful strategy, playing with the heavens and all the realms in his palm. Who else under the sky could compare? Toying with all the worlds in the palm of his hand. Who on earth could match him? After comforting Su Qing'an, I looked up toward the skies, at that faint crack in the barrier between worlds. Though I forcibly erased the black hole to the heaven realm, the barrier between the worlds was already weakened. Through that crack, I could faintly sense countless greedy and malicious eyes, secretly spying on the plentiful northern wasteland. But for now, I wasn't in a hurry to deal with them. They just merged with the will of heaven and achieved the ultimate creator-level realm. I needed some time too, to familiarize myself with this new Lord of 10,000 Daos persona. Besides, Lingzhou Pavilion had just endured such a great catastrophe, and the disciples were all physically and mentally exhausted. It was about time for them to rest and recover. With a wave of my hand, the power of creation turned into a gentle rain, falling over the whole ancient mountains. Any disciple hurt in battle, as long as there was a breath left in their body, had their wounds heal instantly before everyone's eyes. Even the shattered sect protector array was restored in the blink of an eye, even stronger than before. Absolutely unbreakable. After finishing all this, I let out a massive yawn and stretched lazily. All right, that's enough for today. Anyone who needs to heal, go heal up. Anyone who needs to sweep, go sweep. Master Kong Kong, go to the kitchen and get me 2 roasted chickens. That self-destruction made me a bit hungry. Hearing my down-to-earth orders, the oppressive and tense atmosphere vanished at once. Lingzhou Pavilion returned to its former vitality. In the days that followed, the northern wasteland enjoyed a strangely peaceful period. The big shots of the heavens and all the worlds seemed to have been scared off by my earlier self-detonation, and none dared to stick their heads out, only watching secretly from behind the barrier crack. I was more than happy to relax, and resumed my retired, carefree lifestyle. Only this time, my identity was no longer just an anonymous janitor, but publicly and rightfully became the supreme patriarch of Lingzhou Pavilion. Every morning, I would still grab a lounge chair and sit in the orchard behind the mountain, watching the blood demon mother and a group of demonic monks working in the fields. I had to admit, this bunch, no comment. These guys are absolute geniuses when it comes to farming. Ever since they absorbed the spiritual rain from the immortal realm, the spirit herbs in the back mountain have been growing like crazy. Millennium-old ginseng is popping up like giant carrots. There's no end to pulling them out. And the 10,000-year-old lingy mushrooms are as big as umbrellas. Master Kong Kong hasn't been idle either. In addition to his unwavering daily sweeping, he's also taken the initiative to teach the outer disciples. He combined Buddhist mental techniques with the Lingshao sword intent, and created a unique skill called the Great Compassion Demon-Slaying Sword. Every time I see a group of shirtless new disciples chanting Amitabha Buddha while swinging huge swords at wooden stakes, I just can't help but laugh. The scene is just too wild. But what makes me happiest is still Su Qing'an. After going through that life-or-death tribulation when the immortal realm descended, the girl seemed to mature overnight. She's no longer that little girl who, when she faced trouble, all she did was run to the back mountain to cry. Instead, she truly developed the abilities and courage of a sect leader. She handles all the affairs of the sect in an orderly manner, uniting all of the northern wilderness, bringing together every force, big or small, in the entire region, and integrating them all. The Lingshao Pavilion, as it is now, has become the absolute overlord of the northern wilderness. No one dares show a shred of disrespect. That noon, I was lying under the shade, resting my eyes. Su Qing'an walked over with a tray of delicate spirit fruit pastries. She came closer. She was dressed in a pale purple flowing fairy dress today. Without the usual majesty of the sect leader, she looked a bit more like the playful girl next door. Master Ancestor, these osmanthus cakes were handmade by me. Please try some and see if you like them. I opened my eyes, picked up a pastry and put it in my mouth. It melted instantly. Sweet, but not cloying. There was also an extremely gentle spiritual energy within. I nodded with satisfaction. Your cooking is really improving. Way better than those culinary atrocities you made before. Su Qing'an blushed and stomped her foot in mock anger. Master Ancestor, you're teasing me again. Wasn't it just that I hadn't mastered the heat before? I laughed heartily, patted the stone bench next to me, and motioned for her to sit. It's been hard on you lately, running such a big sect all by yourself. Don't you ever feel tired? Su Qing'an shook her head. Her eyes growing determined. Not at all, as long as Master Ancestor is here. I feel like I have endless energy for anything. Besides, I know that the crack in the realm barrier is bound to bring big trouble sooner or later. I have to improve myself and the sect as quickly as possible, and not always hide behind you and become a burden. Hearing this, a hint of admiration flickered in my eyes. This girl hasn't just grown up, she's also learned to think long term. The invasion of the realms is inevitable. Even though I can protect them for a while, I can't protect them forever. This world of cultivation is always the survival of the fittest. If they truly want to stand tall, they'll have to fight for it themselves. I was just about to compliment her, when suddenly a strange rumble echoed from the sky. The spiritual energy across the ancient mountains instantly turned violent. I looked up and saw the crack in the realm barrier high above the heavens suddenly start gushing with rolling black demonic energy. That demonic energy was completely different from our lower world's demonic arts, full of nothing but pure destruction and decay. As if it could drag everything in existence into an endless abyss. Su Qing'an's face instantly changed. She shot to her feet, her long sword in hand ringing sharply. Master Ancestor, that's demonic energy from the 9 Nether Demon realm. I waved my hand, signaling her not to worry, still calmly sitting in the lounge chair. I casually picked up another osmanthus cake. No need to panic. Just a few stray cats and dogs coming to scout. Perfect chance for you to get some practice. After I said that, Su Qing'an immediately calmed down. She took a deep breath and instantly transmitted orders. All Lingxiao Pavilion disciples, listen up. Activate the demon-slaying formation and prepare for battle. As soon as she finished, tens of thousands of Lingxiao Pavilion disciples rushed orderly onto the plaza. Everyone took their positions. The grand formation activated in a flash. A golden shield, shrouding the entire Lingxiao peak. The black demonic energy in the sky slowly condensed, transforming into a colossal 9 nether demon dragon over 1,000 feet long. On the dragon's back stood dozens of 9 nether demon generals clad in black armor. Each one gave off an aura, so powerful that the aura of every demon general was actually on par with our own saints. The leading one-horned demon general looked down and let out a shrill, maniacal laugh. So this is the northern wilderness where the Immortal Realm's passage was sealed off? Doesn't look like much after all. A bunch of bumpkins who've never even touched immortal energy, daring to occupy such a treasured land. Listening to the mocking from above, the Lingxiao Pavilion disciples all clenched their jaws in anger. Still, not a single person lost control, all waiting for Su Qing'an's command. The one-horned demon general saw no reaction below, thinking we'd been scared stiff.
He raised his giant black axe
And swung it hard against Lingxiao Pavilion's shield. I am the first vanguard under the 9 nether demon ancestor, and today I'll use your blood as tribute to the glory of the 9 nether demon realm. The black axe light tore at space as it fell, with a deafening crash, but as soon as the axe light touched the golden shield, it didn't even make a ripple, as if a clay ox into the sea, vanishing without a trace. The one-horned demon general was stunned. That was his full-strength strike. Yes, the demon general was stunned. That was his full-force attack. Even a mountain as high as 10,000 feet should have been split in two. How could it not even scratch such a small shield? Of course he didn't know. This sect-guarding barrier had been personally reinforced by me, with the primal source of creation. Forget a mere vanguard demon general. Even if the demon ancestor himself came, he'd have to lose a few teeth before breaking through. Seeing the attack fail, an icy killing intent flashed in Su Qing'an's eyes. Lingxiao sword guards, follow me out to fight. With her shout, over 1,000 elite disciples shot into the sky, following her out of the shield barrier. Su Qing'an led the charge, her white robe billowing in the wind. She flicked her sword, and the Lingxiao sword intent exploded forth, turning into a dazzling blade of energy 100 feet long, swinging straight for the one-horned demon general's neck. He panicked, never expecting this girl from the lower world would actually dare attack first. And this sword's power, even made him sense a trace of mortal danger. He quickly raised his massive axe to block, and with a clang, a thunderous crash rang out. He hurriedly raised the giant axe to block. A deafening clang echoed out. Sparks flew everywhere. The unicorn demon general was shaken back dozens of yards. His tiger's mouth split open. Black demon blood splattered across the sky. But Su Qingyan pressed the attack, relentless. Her figure turned into a streak of lightning. The sword's brilliance was like a raging storm, completely enveloping the unicorn demon general. The Lingxiao sect disciples following behind Su Qingyan quickly formed a sword formation. They clashed with the other demon generals. For the moment, sword energy crisscrossed the sky, and demonic energy churned. The fight was deadlocked and fierce. I watched from below, thoroughly entertained, nibbling on pastries as I critiqued Jin Han in my mind. That girl's swordsmanship is becoming more and more like mine. Her strikes are decisive. No wasted movement at all. It's just that her speed is still a bit slow here. If she runs into a real expert, it could be trouble. At that moment, Master Kong Kong, who was sweeping nearby, somehow wandered over, smiling as he watched the battle in the sky. "Venerable Buddha, do you think the sect master can win?" I glanced at him. Of course, she was trained by me. If she can't even handle a few scouting small fry, she might as well go smash her head into tofu. Just as I was privately making my critique, the tide of battle in Midder took a turn. Although the unicorn demon general was suppressed by Su Qingyan,
He was still the vanguard of the Nether Abyss demon domain.
recklessness ran deep in his bones. Suddenly, at the cost of withstanding one of Su Qingyan's strikes, he fiercely bit through his tongue and spat out a mouthful of pitch-black demon blood. That demon blood instantly turned into a sprawling, stinking net.
It dropped straight down, aiming right at Su Qingyan's head.
This net was a unique foul object of the Nether Abyss demon domain, specifically designed to break through righteous cultivators' protective energy. If Su Qingyan was caught by it, even if she doesn't die, she'd be skinned alive. The Lingxiao sect disciples below cried out in alarm, with some even shutting their eyes, not daring to look. Even Su Qingyan looked shocked and pale. She tried to leap away, to retreat, but realized the dark net had locked down the surrounding space, leaving her with nowhere to escape. At that critical moment, I sighed helplessly and lazily got up from my lounge chair. I casually flicked my fingers towards the sky. A barely perceptible trace of sword energy left my fingertip, the sword energy flying straight out. It looked utterly harmless, just like a child tossing a pebble. But the instant it touched the terrifying demon net, it was like a red-hot iron falling into snow. That so-called all-corrupting demon net didn't even make a sound, evaporated into thin air then and there. Not only that, the sword energy didn't lose its force. It drifted down lightly onto the unicorn demon general. The demon general didn't even have time to react. His whole body was like a fly gripped by an invisible giant hand. With a bang, he exploded into a cloud of blood mist. Even his soul was utterly shredded. The other demon generals, who'd been fighting the Lingxiao disciples, saw their previously invincible vanguard get obliterated just like that, and all of them froze in terror. Now they were staring at me like I was some monster, their eyes on the figure below, the young man in white, clapping and yawning. Su Qingyan barely escaped with her life, turning to look at me with gratitude. She quickly seized the moment as the demon generals were stunned, and unleashed a torrential sword rain from her sword, turning it into a rain of blades across the sky. It was like chopping cucumbers. The rest of the demon generals were all cut down. A rain of black blood fell from the sky. The Lingxiao sect disciples erupted in thunderous cheers. All the demon generals' corpses were dragged to the back of the mountain, to be used as the finest fertilizer for the spirit fields. I lay back down in my chair, picked up my teacup and took a sip. Then I waved to Su Qingyan. "Come down, girl. Don't show off up there." Su Qingyan sheathed her sword, landing gracefully like a celestial maiden, drifting down from the sky. She quickly walked up to me. "Ancestor Qingyan, did I embarrass you?" I shook my head. You did very well. That demon king was bizarre just now, so it's normal you hadn't encountered it before. Every setback is a lesson. Next time you deal with these crook types, just be a bit more cautious. Just as we were talking, the rift in the sky's barrier suddenly began to churn violently. It seemed the deaths of those demon generals just now had completely enraged whatever was behind the rift. A pressure surged forth, thousands of times more terrifying than before, crashing down. The entire sky above northern wastelands suddenly turned inky black, so dark that you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. It was pitch black, not even able to see your hand. With a roar that seemed to shatter souls, a colossal shadow, 10,000 feet tall, slowly began taking shape by the rift. The shadow had 8 arms, and in each hand was a demonic weapon radiating a destructive aura. The Nether Abyss Demon Ancestor. Su Qing'an gasped in shock, her face turning ashen instantly. The disciples below were all trembling, barely able to stand. That was a legendary existence on par with the immortal kings of the celestial realm. With just a breath, he could wipe out an entire lower world starfield. The Nether Abyss Demon Tribe looked down on Lingxiao's sect as if they were ants, its 8 blood-red eyes filled with savagery and killing intent. Who gave you the guts to kill the vanguard of my Nether Abyss domain? Today I will completely refine this land, so that for all eternity you will suffer torment from the Nether Abyss Demon Flames. That thunderous voice echoed throughout the eternal mountains, causing many of the weaker disciples to faint on the spot. Clenching her teeth, Su Qing'an tried to raise her sword again, gritting her teeth as she attempted to face the enemy. But under the demon ancestor's pressure, she found she couldn't move a muscle. This is the absolute domination of higher cultivation. In front of a true supreme existence, all resistance is futile. Just when everyone thought Lingxiao's sect was doomed today, I slowly sat up from my lounge chair and stretched extravagantly. I said, "Old demon, is there something wrong with your head? Why do you make such a fuss every time you show up? Don't you find it annoying?" My voice wasn't loud, but in the deathly oppressive silence, it sounded especially jarring. The Nether Abyss Demon Ancestor's 8 blood-red eyes locked onto me at once. He clearly didn't expect that in this lower realm, which could be destroyed at any moment, someone would still dare speak to him in that tone. "What the hell are you, that you dare yell at me?" I rolled my eyes, patted the pastry crumbs off my robe, and took a step forward, my whole body instantly appearing right in front of the colossal shadow of the Nether Abyss Demon Ancestor. Compared to his sky-shrouding form, compared to his towering sky-covering form, I was like an insignificant speck of dust. But in that moment, the aura on me underwent a dramatic and earth-shaking change. The world-creating aura I had kept hidden erupted in an instant. It was a supreme power that didn't even belong to this dimension. Just the clash of auras alone forced the oppressive power of the 9 Nether Demon Ancestor back into the crack in an instant. The entire sky above northern wilderness cleared up in a flash. In the 8 eyes of the 9 Nether Demon Ancestor, there finally appeared an expression of incredible terror. Was it that he hadn't finished speaking? I was already too lazy to listen to his nonsense. I raised my right hand and slapped that ugly giant face of his hard. This slap looked slow, but it contained the essence of 3,000 supreme laws. 9 Nether Demon Ancestor tried desperately to raise his demonic aura to block, but those treasures that could destroy worlds in the lower realm instantly turned to dust the moment they touched my palm. Instantly turned to dust. There was a crisp smack sound. That sound was so sharp, just like an old father on earth disciplining a disobedient child. The gigantic shadow of the 9 Nether Demon Ancestor was immediately slapped by me. The gigantic shadow of the ancestor spun 360 degrees in place from my slap. His massive body shrank rapidly, like a deflated ball, shrinking quickly. Finally crashed onto the Lingxiao Pavilion Plaza with a thud, smashing a person-shaped crater into the hard blue stone slabs. The entire audience was dead silent. If there was a sound, the tens of thousands of disciples, including Su Qing'an, all had their mouths open in an O shape. They always knew the patriarch was invincible. But this was just too unbelievable. That was the nine nether demon ancestor after all. The legendary ultimate fiend who could devour the stars. Yet, in front of the patriarch, he couldn't even take a single slap. I casually landed in the plaza, walked to the edge of the person-shaped crater, looking at the guy inside, face swollen and battered, completely black and blue. I kicked the demon ancestor's head with my toe. Stop playing dead, get up and get to work. The nine nether demon ancestor shakily got up, with not a hint left of his former arrogance. He looked at me, like a mouse seeing a cat. His eyes were full of deep fear and despair. Who on earth are you really?
I picked at my ear.
Fear and despair. Who exactly are you? I picked my ear. Why do you care who I am? Since you're here, don't even think of leaving. Our Lingxiao Pavilion's latrine out back needs a manure carrier. You look pretty sturdy, so from now on, this glorious and tough job is yours. When the nine nether demon ancestor heard this, he almost coughed up blood from anger. He, the supreme master of the demon domain, now had to haul manure for a sect in the lower realm. That was worse than killing him. Death before dishonor. I'll fight you to the end, he roared, trying to self-destruct, and take us out with the demon box. But how could I possibly let him have that chance? I waved my hand nonchalantly. The dewy golden lotus that had been floating in midair emitted a brilliant Buddhist light, shining directly down onto the nine nether demon ancestor's head. All you could hear was a pig slaughtering scream. After that, the mighty demon lord had a completely bald head, wearing a tattered monk's robe, put his palms together, and bowed deeply at me with a merciful look. Amitabha, thank you, Venerable Buddha, for enlightening me. This humble monk is filled with sin. I volunteer for 100,000 years of manure hauling on the back mountain, as penance for my past transgressions. The sweeping Master Kong Kong nearby saw this, and hurried over cheerfully, handed the nine nether demon ancestor a carrying pole and 2 manure buckets. Junior brother, welcome to the Lingxiao Pavilion logistics team. Let's work hard together from now on, and aim to achieve true enlightenment as soon as possible. Looking at the 2 former demon lords, cheerfully discussing manure hauling tips. The disciples of Lingxiao Pavilion were totally numb, and finally understood one thing. In this world, you can mess with heaven and earth. But whatever you do, don't anger the patriarch of Lingxiao Pavilion. Just because if you offend other sects, the worst you'll get is death. But if you offend Lingxiao Pavilion, you might get your head shaved and spend your life hauling manure. After this farce, all the heavens and worlds became completely quiet. There was no more movement from the other side of the world crack. Not even a fly dared to come over. The entire northern wilderness entered a century-long golden age of development. In that 100 years, thanks to having a worker of the nine nether demon ancestors' caliber, helping out with the back mountain, Lingxiao Pavilion's foundation kept growing like a snowball, getting stronger and stronger, and broader. Any one of the disciples could go out and found a sect in another star domain. And as for me, I completely became an absolute, total idler. My greatest daily pleasure was watching those former powerhouses work the fields, and occasionally guiding my disciples' cultivation. One evening, the setting sun cast its afterglow across the ancient mountains, bathing the whole Lingxiao Pavilion in golden light. I sat alone by the cliff at the back mountain,
Holding
a pot of fruit wine freshly brewed by Master Kong Kong, and staring into the distant sea of clouds lost in thought.
honestly.
Living in this unbeatable peace for so long was getting kind of boring. That unreliable system hadn't made a sound since granting me that founder-level cultivation, as if it had totally crashed, just as I was bored out of my mind. I heard gentle footsteps behind me. I didn't turn around, knowing it was Su Qingyan. Over the past century, she had shed all traces of girlishness and grown into the utterly peerless empress of the entire northern wilderness. But in front of me, the peerless empress, but in front of me, she would always be that little girl who'd secretly make osmanthus cakes for me. Old patriarch, are you drinking alone here? Su Qingyan walked up beside me, naturally snatched the wine pot from my hand, raised her pale neck and took a sip, then immediately coughed from the fiery liquor. I laughed and patted her on the back. Silly girl. You're used to drinking flower wine. This kind of strong liquor isn't for you. Su Qing'an wiped the wine from the corner of her mouth and sat down next to me, her legs dangling lightly off the edge. Old patriarch, are you bored? I froze for a moment, turned to look at her. Why do you ask all of a sudden? Su Qing'an gazed at the distant clouds, a barely perceptible sadness flashing in her eyes. Qing'an knows, someone like you, patriarch, was destined to belong to the boundless sea of stars. This little northern wilderness could never keep you. Even though you've been smiling every day for a century, Qing'an can still see the light is gone from your eyes.
Hearing this,
I couldn't help but sigh to myself. What a perceptive girl. I couldn't help but sigh softly. This girl is so thoughtful, it's heart-wrenching. I reached out my hand and rubbed her head just like I used to. Don't let your imagination run wild. I'm someone who hates trouble the most. If I can lie at home, who would want to go out for fights and killings? As long as you all stay safe and sound, I'd gladly just sit here day after day zoning out. Su Qing'an turned her head to look at me, her eyes shimmering with tears. Ancestor, if you ever really leave one day, could you take Qing'an with you? Qing'an isn't afraid of death or heartbreak. I just want to stay by your side forever, even if it's just serving you tea and water. I looked at that stubborn and deeply affectionate face. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. After a century together, even a stone would have warmed up. Besides, I'm not someone without feelings. But deep down I knew, peace was only temporary. The rift in the boundary wall had been calm for 100 years, but that's only the calm before the storm. The true horrors hiding deep in all the worlds would return sooner or later. Just as I was about to comfort him, when I was about to say something to comfort him, a soul-shattering cry suddenly echoed from the sky. It was a desperate wail from the will of heaven. My face suddenly changed color. I sprang to my feet. The original brilliant sunset was instantly swallowed by an indescribable gray and decaying aura. All the spiritual energy in northern wasteland stopped flowing at that moment. It was as if time itself had frozen. Not far away in the void, the old heavenly Tao elder who often came to complain to me stumbled and finally manifested his figure. His once immortal and dignified appearance now looked miserable beyond compare. Half of his body had been eroded by some strange force and turned into bare bones. When the old man saw me, it was as if he grabbed his last lifeline. He dropped to his knees with a thud, crying at the top of his lungs, "Pervert, come save me. The alliance of all heavens is attacking. Immortal realm, divine realm, and netherworld have all joined forces. They've summoned the world-ending millstone, the source of the universe. They want to grind the whole northern wasteland and me into nothingness." Hearing this, I took a sharp breath. Damn, those cowardly turtles didn't make a move for 100 years. Those cowardly turtles stayed hidden for 100 years. And now they're pulling off something this big. 3 great worlds joining forces directly. And they're even using a world-ending killing weapon. Su Qing'an's expression also changed drastically. He could clearly sense a destructive force that's above all living things, slowly pushing through the rift in the boundary wall. It's a kind of despair so deep that it crushes the will to resist. I didn't hesitate. I yanked the old heavenly Tao elder up from the ground and sent a stream of creation source energy into him to stabilize his injuries. Stop wailing. If the sky falls, the tallest will take the hit. I'm not dead yet. No way they'll have free rein to act wild here. Speaking, I turned to look at Su Qing'an. My gaze became extremely serious. Girl, activate the highest level of our sect's defensive formation right now. Gather all disciples at the Forbidden's area behind the mountain.
tell Master Kong Kong.
To get ready for battle. Su Qing'an didn't hesitate at all. She nodded firmly and shot off like a beam of light toward the main peak. The piercing enemy invasion alarm instantly echoed throughout the Eternal Mountain Range. I stepped up to the 9th heaven and arrived at the Eternal Mountain Range. I stepped up to the 9th heaven and came to the front of the boundary wall rift. By now, the rift had been forcibly torn to an unimaginable extent. Through that gaping hole, I saw a scene that made my scalp crawl. In the vast starry sky, countless warships filled the horizon. There was no end in sight. Armored immortal generals from the immortal realm, chaos soldiers from the divine realm, skeleton armies from the netherworld, had somehow seamlessly formed a unified force. In the center of these armies hovered an enormous black millstone. The millstone slowly turned. Every rotation shattered the surrounding space into dust. It emitted a soul-chilling aura of contempt. Above the black millstone stood three mighty figures side by side. They were the supreme rulers of the immortal realm, divine realm, and netherworld. The aura radiating from each of them wasn't weaker than mine, currently at the creation level. The immortal king looked at me, standing alone in front of the rift, and let out a scornful cold laugh. "I'm from the lower world. Haven't seen you in 100 years, and you've actually improved quite a bit." "I'm from the lower world. It's been 100 years. You've really advanced a lot. You managed to force the three realms to join forces. But even if the great Tao descended today, it couldn't save you. This world-ending millstone is the primal treasure born with the universe. It's specifically meant to cleanse filth. Prepare to die, lower world." The divine king also mocked me. "Stop wasting words with him. Just activate the millstone. Grind this land and him into dust. We need to get back and split the origin of this world." Faced with the pressure of three big bosses on my level, and the billions of troops from all heavens, I didn't feel fear at all. Instead, I was fired up with a passion I hadn't felt in ages. 100 years I've finally been waiting for this moment. I burst out laughing toward the sky, my laughter echoing like thunder across all the worlds. "You frogs at the bottom of the well really think a broken grinder makes you invincible? Today I'll stand right here. Just try spinning that broken millstone if you dare. See if you can scrape off a patch of my skin." My arrogance completely enraged the three rulers. They stopped wasting words and simultaneously formed seals with both hands, pouring vast origin energy into the world-ending millstone. Boom! The black millstone began crazily spinning. An irresistible suction force burst out from the millstone. The whole northern wasteland started violently shaking. Countless mountains and rivers collapsed, turned to dust, and were sucked into the millstone. Lingxiao Pavilion held out against the first wave, thanks to my protective formation. But the golden shield was already covered in cracks like a spider web. It could shatter at any moment. Behind the mountain, in the Forbidden Land, tens of thousands of disciples looked up at the sky, at that terrifying apocalyptic scene. Each one gripped their magic weapon tightly. They knew, in a battle on this scale, they didn't even qualify as cannon fodder. But not a single one retreated. All their eyes were red, and they loudly recited the pavilion's rules. Lingxiao disciples should live as heroes among men, and die as valiant spirits. Better shatter jade than be whole as clay. Master Kong Kong and the Zhuyu demon clan, along with a group of leaders who had all been brainwashed, were full of heroic sadness at this moment. They put their hands together in prayer. I was sitting cross-legged on the ground, and poured all my cultivation power, completely and without reservation, into the core of the formation. I was trying to win my sect just a little more time to survive. Su Qing'an stood at the very front, a single line of bloody tears flowing from the corner of his eye. He stared unflinchingly at the white figure in the sky. In his heart, he silently swore to the patriarch, "If you die in battle today, I, Qing'an, will not live alone in the sky." Facing that terrifying power capable of crushing the universe, I chose not to dodge, nor did I choose to directly withstand it with my Genesis essence. I knew very well in my heart that the extinction mill, unleashed by those three working together, was already beyond what this dimension could bear. If I chose to fight head-on, even if I should win in the end, all of North Wild would be caught in the shockwave and turned utterly to dust. Every disciple, every mountain and river would cease to exist. So I had only one choice left. That was to use my Genesis-level physical body to block the extinction mill's formation. only by absorbing all the destructive power, drawing it into my own body and then detonating it. Could I use the explosion's recoil to completely destroy the millstone and wipe out the allied army of the heavens at the same time? Meanwhile, I could channel this power back into Northwild. I could forcibly elevate this lower realm straight to the status of a supreme plane. This was the very opportunity I had always been waiting for. An all-or-nothing, once-in-eternity chance for self-destruction. At that thought, I dropped all my defenses, spread my arms wide, and, like a moth to the flame, hurled myself toward the massive black millstone. I flew straight at it. When the former king saw this, he was stunned at first, then burst out in maniacal laughter. Ha ha ha! That kid's gone insane. He actually wants to use his body to block the extinction mill.
He really overestimates himself.
The God King and Netherworld Lord exchanged looks brimming with agreement. In their eyes, my action was nothing more than a desperate suicide. Everyone in Lingshao Pavilion below was utterly stunned. Zhou Qingyan let out a heart-wrenching cry. Patriarch, no! He tried to dash out of the barrier like a madman, but was held back tightly by Master Kong Kong. Master Zong Kong gripped him firmly as well. Sec Master, you can't. There must be a deeper meaning behind Buddha Lord's action. If you go, you'll only distract him. I heard Su Qingyan's desperate cries, but I didn't look back. I simply used divine sense to send him a message. Girl, don't cry. Watch closely for me. Today, Grandpa will make you the most dazzling firework. The next instant, my body charged straight into the very center of the extinction mill with nothing to stop it. That force of chaos, able to grind everything to dust, tore at my physical body like madness. Even a Genesis-level body like mine began to crack inch by inch under that power. Blood drenched my white clothes red. My bones creaked and popped under unbearable strain, but I felt no pain, only a sense of unprecedented liberation and ecstasy. I absorbed the mill's power relentlessly, compressing all that destructive energy over and over into my core. 100 times, 1,000 times, 10,000 times. When my body could expand no further, and was about to burst like a balloon at any second, I used every last ounce of strength to flash a blindingly brilliant smile at the 3 stupefied overlords outside. I showed the overlords a dazzling smile. Surprised, boys? Bet you didn't see that coming. The 3 overlords finally realized something was wrong. They sensed a surge of energy inside me, 10,000 times more terrifying than that millstone. A wild, violent power ran rampant throughout my body, a force of ultimate destruction that could erase even them. Stop! Stop now! The Millstone Immortal King screamed in terror, desperately trying to cut off his connection to the source, but it was already too late. The power inside me had reached the tipping point. I took a deep breath and spoke aloud, the words I'd recited through countless deaths. Heaven and earth endure together. All dharmas are void. Now blow up for me. It wasn't a voice. It was the whole universe trembling, as a radiance indescribable in words erupted from the core of the extinction mill. The flash was so blinding that in that moment, throughout all the realms of the heavens, every last trace of color was lost. All that remained was blinding, endless white. There was no deafening roar, because not even sound could carry such a level of energy. Those 3 arrogant overlords couldn't even manage a single scream not even a single scream before the radiance took them. They vaporized instantly within that light. Hundreds of millions of the allied army of the heavens were like snowflakes under a blazing sun, their warships and all, vanishing silently into the void. The so-called extinction mill that was supposed to scour the universe was blown apart into primordial chaotic particles. Yet just as the terrifying aftershock of the blast was about to destroy Northwild, something miraculous happened. It transformed into a golden rain, full of life. That was my final calculation. I used my own death to transform all destructive force, and feed it back to this land I love so dearly. The disciples of Lingshao Pavilion, bathed in golden rain, had their cultivation skyrocket like a rocket's ascent, Elders who had long been blocked by bottlenecks reached sainthood in an instant, and even the most ordinary mortals and servants formed their foundation overnight. In parched farmlands, divine trees found only in the immortal realms sprouted, and the ancient, ruined mountain chains rose out of the ground in that instant, piercing straight through the lower realms barrier, soaring to the highest reaches of the heavens. The barrier rose to the very pinnacle of all the realms. Northwild ascended to the supreme divine domain. But amid the miracle that had the entire world celebrating, not a single person in Lingshao Pavilion could bring themselves to smile. Everyone stared blankly at the sky, at the slowly closing crack in the world barrier, at the now empty space there. With a thud, Su Qing'an fell to his knees, tears sliding down his cheeks in silence. He didn't cry out loud, because when sorrow reaches its peak, not a sound can escape. He simply stared unwaveringly at the sky, my final words echoing in his mind again and again. Today, Grandpa will make you the most dazzling firework. Master Kong Kong set aside his broom. Jiu demon ancestor threw down his shoulder pole, and tens of thousands of disciples, without exception, all knelt to the ground, bowing deeply 3 times toward the sky. Patriarch, rest in peace. The low, mournful voices joined into a river, rushing to the clouds. The entire supreme divine domain entered an unbroken 10-year mourning. In those 10 years, Su Qing'an never once stepped out of the forbidden grounds, and every day, he would sit on the lounge chair where I used to sit, and gaze at. Every day, he would sit in the lounge chair I used to sit on, looking out at the distant sea of clouds. He'd sit there all day long. With his unparalleled cultivation, he preserved the explosion of light I unleashed in that instant, forever above the Lingshao Pavilion. He made me the eternal sun in this world. One day, 10 years later, Su Qing'an was daydreaming in the lounge chair as usual. Suddenly, he heard a crisp voice in his mind.
Ding.
Detected. Host has performed the ultimate sacrifice beyond dimensions. The laws of life and death have been thoroughly overturned. System has determined you are beyond its comprehension. Concepts and death have been erased. Congratulations, you are now the eternal embodiment of the Tao. The system has unbound itself. Wish you a happy life. Immediately, under Su Qing'an's astonished gaze, the space in front of the stone gate of the back mountain forbiddens area suddenly twisted. A young man in plain green clothes, looking completely ordinary, just like the big brother next door, carrying 2 greasy roast chickens in his hand, stepped out from the void. He took a deep breath of the fresh back mountain air, then waved at Su Qing'an in a carefree manner. Hey girl, why are you spacing out? Your old ancestor's tired of self-detonating. Come over and heat up these roast chickens already. Su Qing'an jumped up abruptly, the teacup in his hand smashing to pieces on the ground. He couldn't believe his eyes, afraid it was just a fragile dream. But that familiar, teasing tone, that laid-back demeanor, that couldn't be changed no matter how many disguises were put on. Who could it be but him? Old ancestor! Su Qing'an could no longer control his emotions, and dashed over like a swallow flying back to its nest. He threw himself into that warm embrace, and burst into tears, with one hand holding the roast chickens, and the other awkwardly patting his back. I helplessly sighed. Hey, don't wipe your snot on my clothes. This is my grand Tao reaction in my heart's drama. Kneeling, crying loudly. The cries drew Master Kong Kong and the demon ancestor Juyu from outside. They ran in, and upon seeing this, their brooms and carrying poles clattered to the ground, falling onto the floor. Lord Buddha, have you really become immortal? Truly undying and indestructible? The 2 old men wept with excitement. I shot them a glare. What, are you wishing for my early death? No one's forcing you to clean latrines or sweep, right? The 2 hurriedly waved their hands in denial. Amitabha. Lord Buddha, you must be joking. Now, if I don't shovel dung for even a day, I feel uneasy all over. From afar, the old man of the heavenly Tao happily rushed over too. Now he's benefiting from my glory, becoming the heavenly Tao of the supreme divine realm. His status is even higher than the 3 former rulers. You pervert, you're finally back. You have no idea, with you gone for 10 years. I've been so bored I was about to mold. I looked around, at all these familiar and lively smiling faces, feeling the real warmth of Su Qingyan in my arms, and an unprecedented sense of satisfaction bubbled up inside me. I used to always think about how to court death to get stronger. But now, I've already reached the very top of the universe. The system is unbound, and I no longer have to rely on death to gain anything. From now on, I just want to quietly be a salty, protective ancestor. As the salted fish ancestor, in this supreme divine realm I built myself, I want to live carefree days with my adorable disciples and grand disciples, to enjoy some shamelessly happy and peaceful days. I handed the roasted chickens to the heavenly Tao old man. Go gather all the disciples of our sect.
Tonight,
We're holding a free-for-all gathering in the plaza. No one goes home until they're drunk. As the sun set, the bonfire on the Lingxiao Pavilion Square blazed once again, joyful laughter echoing throughout the entire divine realm. I laid back in my exclusive lounge chair at the center of the crowd, Su Qingyan kneeling politely by my side, peeling grapes for me. Looking up at the sky, at the eternal golden crow I became from self-detonation, I hummed an unknown little tune in high spirits. This immortal cultivation world, constant fighting, what's the point? It's the simple pleasures of the human world that truly touch the soul. With that, the story comes to a perfect close. No more alien invaders, no more gods and demons, just one invincible old ancestor, who is also the most down-to-earth, and his Lingxiao Pavilion, living forever in happiness and joy, here in this supreme paradise.